Chapter 716 Special Building, War Hero Monument. More than 9,000 divine artifacts. I knew that His Majesty would not fall behind those top-notch people of foreign races lords. Didn't someone say last time that His Majesty's rise was just a flash in the pan? If you have the ability now, stand up and look at the current rankings. Say that again. I understand now. It turns out that His Majesty is the kind of person who accumulates a lot of experience. He fell behind at the beginning just to pave the way for him to catch up later. I remember that during the last Myriad Races Lord Battlefield event, His Majesty's ranking wasn't very high at the beginning. When the true lords reached the top of the mythical tier, His Majesty didn't seem to have reached the diamond tier. However, later on, His Majesty defeated many top lords step by step and slowly took over the mythical tier rank. In the end, he even surpassed the true lords and became the strongest lord of all races. Compared to being dazzlingly powerful at the beginning, His Majesty's slow-moving strength can only be used later. However, it feels really satisfying to follow the entire process. It's like watching a drama. Dragon Lady Lord, congratulations to Your Majesty for successfully entering the 4th place on the faction points ranking of the lords of all races. Dragon Lady Lord brings all the lord members of the Dragon Blood Alliance to congratulate Your Majesty. Undead Lord, congratulations to Your Majesty for successfully entering the 4th place on the faction points ranking of the lords of all races. I bring all the lord members of the Undead Alliance to congratulate Your Majesty. Military Industry Lord, Your Majesty is awesome. All the members of the Military Industry Alliance and I congratulate Your Majesty heartily. Mystic Heaven Lord, all the lords of the Mystic Heaven Immortal Alliance and I sincerely congratulate Your Majesty. Overlord Lord, congratulations, Your Majesty. The top lords of the Cerulean planet, who usually did not appear, appeared at this moment and congratulated Jojo. Many lords were stunned when they saw this scene. They didn't know why these top-notch lords of Cerulean planet, who were usually arrogant, were suddenly sucking up to the King of the Blazing Sun. It wasn't until a lord who knew the inside story told these Cerulean planet lords that the Dragon Lady Lord and the others had already joined Jojo's faction that everyone understood what was going on. However, it was precisely because they knew the truth that the lords of Cerulean planet were even more shocked. One had to know that these top-notch lords of the Cerulean planet and the Lord Alliance behind them could be said to control the most elite lords of the Cerulean planet. If they had all submitted to the Lord of the Blazing Sun, wouldn't that mean that the current Lord of the Blazing Sun could be considered the true supreme leader among the lords of Cerulean planet? After figuring this out, many Cerulean planet lords who were keyboard warriors decided not to badmouth the Lord of the Blazing Sun on the World Channel in the future. Instead, they decided to be an unknown turtle and stop provoking the King of the Blazing Sun. The King of the Blazing Sun was powerful in the past but he didn't like to form alliances with others. When one was far away from authority the powers that be will not intervene, therefore he wasn't respected by many lords. And now, not only was the King of the Blazing Sun powerful, his lord faction was also about to control all the lords on Cerulean planet. Under such circumstances, who would dare to find trouble for himself? The Dragon Lady Lord and the other top lords of Cerulean planet might find the location of their territories by mobilizing more than 100 million lord members of the Lord Alliance under them. Then, they would send troops over to keep things in check in the territory. Jojo also saw what happened on the World Channel. He smiled. Even though he didn't care about the keyboard warrior's words, it would be better if his ears were quieter and the comments he saw when he was diving were cleaner. He casually replied to the congratulations of Dragon Lady Lord and the others before looking at a blueprint. It was the random special building blueprint. Building blueprint name, War Hero Monument, building blueprint level, special, building blueprint function 1, heroic spirit blessing. When the territory is in trouble, the soldiers who died in the war will reappear in the form of heroic spirits and fight one last battle with the enemy to protect the territory's subjects. Building Blueprint Function 2, Loyalty, territory subjects' loyalty is fixed +1. Building blueprint description, cherish peace, heroes live forever. This special building blueprint is not bad. Zhou Zhou nodded. He planned to go back and find Zhao Changshou and the others to build this building as soon as possible. Then, he began to retrieve the loots. The extracted targets included the corpses of more than 600 legendary tier fog monsters, the corpses of 3 low-tier deity-level fog monsters, the corpses of 2 mid-tier deity-level fog monsters, and the most important 2 high-tier deity-level fog monsters. Under Zhou Zhou's special instructions, these corpses had been specially delivered to him by the soldiers. Among them, under Zhou Zhou's extraction, he obtained more than 600 copies of the Book of the God Spirit, more than 9,000 low-tier deity-level divine artifacts, and more than 30,000 low-tier deity-level materials, minerals, potions, building blueprints, and other loots. Looking at the many god-tier loots in the king's treasure box, even though Zhou Zhou was already prepared, he was still stunned. After a long time, he came back to his senses and secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, he had specially extracted the loots alone. Otherwise, the glory of so many god-tier loots, especially more than 9,000 low-level divine artifacts, would probably cause the moral values of all the soldiers in the territory to collapse. Divine artifacts have always been extremely precious. Even the high-tier deity-level Heros cherished the divine artifacts that Zhou Zhou lent him. However, Zhou Zhou now had more than 9,000 low-tier deity-level divine artifacts. Who wouldn't be confused after seeing it? In the future, I can freely sell away low-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifacts. Zhou Zhou looked at the divine artifacts and sighed. He thought for a moment and quickly came to a decision. In the future, every god spirits of his territory could have a set of low-tier deity-level divine artifacts for free. Otherwise, it would be a waste of his talent. Moreover, as his enemy level continued to increase, the strength of his subordinates also needed to be improved quickly. Otherwise, he would not be able to deal with his enemies in terms of strength. Therefore, it was not the time to be calculative. He had to do his best to increase his combat strength first. The rules of rewarding meritorious service were placed on higher-level divine artifacts or other rewards. Then, he extracted the loot from 3 low-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirits, 2 mid-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirits, and 1 high-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit. He took a quick glance and then an obvious look of disdain appeared on his face. This was because only 3 god spirits among the 6 Scarlet God Spirits had 2 low-tier deity-level intermediate grade and 1 mid-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifacts. That high-tier deity level which wasn't Gerard was actually only using a mid-tier deity level divine artifact. The other Scarlet God Spirits were using ordinary weapons of legendary tier advance grade. How poor! Zhou Zhou was speechless. However, he still chose to extract it. Soon, he had obtained 6 Book of the God Spirit, 54 low-level deity-level divine artifacts, 6 mid-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine artifacts, 3 high-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifacts, and a bunch of god-tier materials, ores, potions, building blueprints, and other loots. As for the other spoils of war below the god-tier level, there was no need to elaborate on them here because there were too many of them. Then, he looked at Gerard's body at the end, and his eyes suddenly became hot. This high-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit could have a high-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifact. Once he extracted it, with the enhancement of the King of Loots, he would directly possess 3 identical true god-tier elementary-grade divine artifacts. Sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you very much. Chapter 717 Gerard's Loot. Dimensional Slash. Dimensional Passage. Zhou Zhou looked at Gerard's corpse and a text notification appeared. Item name, Pillar of the Empire, Gerard's corpse, item level, high-tier deity level intermediate grade. Item effect, contains unextracted loots. Item description, Beginner Scarlet Empire, the strongest Scarlet God Spirit in the Scarlet Empire. He has been in control of the refined flame Scarlet Legion for more than 2,000 years. He has a lot of combat experience and is known as the Pillar of the Scarlet Empire. However, he died in a special war with a kingdom. Loot drop rate, 40 high-tier deity level intermediate grade divine crystals, drop rate, 100%, 500,000 origin crystals, drop rate, 100%, 1 high-tier deity level intermediate grade hero skill, Space Blade, drop rate, 5%, 1 high-tier deity level intermediate grade hero skill, Shuttling Between Spaces, drop rate, 5%, 1 high-tier deity level elementary grade divine artifact Space Splitting Blade, drop rate, 1%, 1 legendary tier advanced grade equipment, Space Crystal Spiritual Bell. Armor, drop rate, 20%, 1 legendary tier advanced grade equipment, Space Invisible Boots, drop rate, 20%, 1 legendary tier advanced grade equipment, Soul Rearing Jade, drop rate, 20%, 1 legendary tier advanced grade equipment, Vitra Blessings, drop rate, 20%, 1 high-tier deity level intermediate grade, Space Oscillation, Divine Spark Fragment, drop rate, 5%, 1 high-tier deity level intermediate grade, Soul Tower, Divine Spark Fragment, drop rate, 5%, 1 high-tier deity level intermediate grade Hero Inheritance Secret Manual, drop rate, 3%, 1 high-tier deity level intermediate grade, Book of the God Spirit, drop rate, 0, 1%, 6 Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments, drop rate, 0%. Zhou Zhou looked at his spoils of war and suddenly realized something very interesting. That was, the strong did not seem to have Lord Talents. Among their spoils of war, there were usually a few Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal Fragments. He thought for a moment and understood. If a person with a Lord Talent discovered that they had a Lord Talent at the beginning, most of these people would actually put their energy into becoming a Lord and not spend their energy on becoming strong. Lords could also increase their strength by nurturing subjects after all. Even though the speed at which he increased his strength was relatively slow, just like Zhou Zhou, whose strength was far inferior to his subordinates. This was because the Lord needed too much promotion energy. If a person did not detect that he had the Lord Talent at the beginning, he would devote all his energy to improving his personal strength. This choice did not seem to be as glamorous as a lord's with power, status, and benefits that lords had. However, it could allow this person to focus on improving his strength and quickly increase his strength. It was probably for this reason that was why the experts he encountered did not have any Lord Talents. The lords he met were basically inferior to the generals under them. He did not think too much about it and directly extracted them. The text notification appeared again. Do you want to retrieve the loot? Do you want to use the Race Divine Artifact, Lucky Star to retrieve a special loots? Yes. Zhou Zhou immediately said. Previously, he had used the lucky ability of the Lucky Star once a day. However, the additional loots he obtained was at most special in terms of stats effects and did not attract Zhou Zhou much, so he did not pay much attention to it. He had yet to use his lucky ability till this day. Since he had encountered the corpse of this high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade god spirit, he naturally had to use it on this fellow. Lord Talent Notification, your loots have been enhanced by the King of Loots, Perfect Loots. Grade +1. Title Hint, your loots have been affected by the title of the strongest lord. The number of loots has increased by 150%. Lord Talent Notification, you have obtained Perfect Loots, 100 Divine Crystals, True God Tier Intermediate Grade, 1, 25 million Origin Crystals, 3 Dimensional / Hero Skills, True God Tier Intermediate Grade, 3 Dimensional Passage, Hero Skills, True God Tier, 3 Sword of New Dimension Creation Divine Artifact, True God Tier, 3 Purple Element Mystic Space Armor Divine Artifacts, Low Tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade, 3 Mysterious Traveler Boots Divine Artifacts. Low Tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade, 3 Heavenly Element Soul Heart Divine Artifacts, Low Tier Deity Level Intermediate Grade, 3 Subdue Dragon Riding Demon Amour Divine Artifact, low-tier deity level intermediate grade, 3, world destruction, divine spark fragments, true god tier intermediate grade, 3, soul world divine spark fragments, 1 hero inheritance secret manual, true god tier intermediate grade, 1 book of the god spirit, true god tier intermediate grade, 15. Lord talent crystal fragments. Lucky star notification, you have obtained a special loots, the pillar of the empire puppet, high tier deity intermediate grade. Whoosh. Gerard's corpse turned into a large amount of light and flew into Zhou Zhou's king's treasure box in the blink of an eye. Zhou Zhou began to check the loots. Needless to say, there were divine crystals, origin crystals, and lord talent crystal fragments. He looked at the first hero skill. Hero skill, dimensional slash, level, true god tier intermediate grade, skill effect, condense the power of space to the extreme and form a slash that can destroy most things in the myriad worlds. It's an extreme slashing power. No matter how strong something is, it's very difficult to withstand its slash. It can even cut open the world membrane and open a spatial rift that leads to another world. Extreme slashing power. It can even open a spatial rift that leads to another world. This is actually a pure combat hero skill. Zhou Zhou looked at this hero skill and muttered to himself. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He had picked up a treasure. This hero skill was definitely the most practical hero skill regardless of whether or not it was rare. It could play a huge role when used in battle. Moreover, because it was a hero skill, Zhou Zhou could also let his ultimate lord clone learn it. However, the power he learned could only be temporarily at the extraordinary tier advanced grade. In the future, its power would increase as the ultimate lord's strength increased. In addition, when he heard that the insect lord had the ability to go to another universe, even though he did not say it out loud, he was actually quite envious. But now, with this dimensional slash, even if he could not find another universe, he already had the ability to open up another universe. Not bad, not bad. Zhou Zhou was very satisfied. Then, he looked at another hero skill. Hero skill, dimensional passage, level, true god tier intermediate grade, skill effect, condense a vast amount of spatial energy and use the spatial coordinates you are at as the starting coordinates. Find another spatial coordinate and you can set up a temporary dimensional passage between the two spatial coordinates. This dimensional passage can allow people and supplies from both places to pass through. The communication distance of the dimensional passage depended on the strength of the person who released it. The weaker one was, the shorter the communication distance in the dimensional passage. On the other hand, the stronger one is, the further one can go. Maintaining the dimensional passage required the user to constantly input spatial stats energy into the dimensional passage. The dimensional passage can allow two different worlds to communicate with people and supplies. Good God! It's a pair with the dimensional slash. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. First, he would use the dimensional slash to open the barrier between the alternate worlds. Then, he would use the dimensional passage to build a bridge between the two worlds. After that, he could play master to the two worlds to his heart's content. Zhou Zhou thought that he could give it a try when he finds a new universe in the future. Chapter 718 True God Tier Divine Artifact, Sword of New Dimension Creation. Then, Zhou Zhou looked at the True God Tier Divine Artifact with anticipation. It was a long sword that emitted a faint seven-colored light. At the hilt of the sword, was an exquisite silver wheel. In the wheel was a slowly rotating strange silver-gray ball of light. The rich power of space and time kept surging in all directions with the silver-gray ball of light as the core. After reaching a certain range, it was recycled into the silver-gray ball of light. Zhou Zhou took out the true divine artifact and held it in his hand. At this moment, Heraus and the other god spirits with sharp senses were suddenly stunned. Then, they looked in Zhou Zhou's direction and realized that their king actually disappeared. Where's His Majesty? Bai Yun's expression changed slightly. I don't know. Heraus frowned. He was an actual high-tier deity-level god spirit. In addition, he liked to fight, so his perception was much sharper than other high-tier deity levels of the same level. He could even confidently say that in terms of perception, other than a few talented god spirits, only the true god tier and master god tier could firmly crush him. However, with such a perception, even he actually didn't notice when His Majesty disappeared. This left him in disbelief. I didn't find out when His Majesty disappeared. However, my divination didn't produce any ominous results. His Majesty shouldn't be in any danger. An epic tier intermediate grade hero from the people of foreign race who was good at divination said in a deep voice after divining a few times. Everyone was slightly relieved after hearing this, but they were still a little worried. Don't worry. I'm fine. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's voice suddenly sounded in everyone's minds. This sound seemed to come from all directions, making it impossible to sense where the person who made the sound was. When everyone heard this, they immediately recognized that it was their king's voice. They still heaved a sigh of relief even though they did not see him in person. Your Majesty, where are you? Heraus magnified his perception to the greatest extent, wanting to find where His Majesty was. He had always been confident in his perception. But now, he had suffered a setback from His Majesty. This made he somewhat indignant. I'll be right back. Zhou Zhou did not explain further. At the same time, in a temporarily formed spatio-temporal region, Zhou Zhou sized up this realm. This should be one of the abilities of the true god-tier divine artifact in my hand. Zhou Zhou guessed. Then, he clicked his tongue in wonder. As expected of a true god-tier divine artifact, there was actually such a phenomenon as soon as he touched it. He was not in a hurry to look at the information of the divine artifact. Instead, he first made the true god-tier divine artifact recognize him as its master. Then, he willed it. Right on the heels of that, the silver-gray ball of light gradually stopped surging with the power of time and space, causing the surrounding regional phenomena to gradually disappear. The power of time and space was retracted into the silver-gray light wheel. Zhou Zhou's figure appeared above the generals. The generals quickly discovered Zhou Zhou. They were only truly relieved when they saw that their king was safe and sound. What's that? Heraus looked at the sword of new dimension creation in Zhou Zhou's hand. While the sword did not emit the aura or pressure of a treasure, it looked like an exquisite mortal sword. However, he felt that since it was so valued by His Majesty, it was definitely not an ordinary item. It might be a rare treasure. Nonetheless, since it was His Majesty's treasure, Heraus, who was already a subject, did not think too much about it and did not have any greed. At the same time, Zhou Zhou also looked at the information on the divine artifact in his hand. Divine artifact name, Sword of New Dimension Creation, Divine Artifact Grade, True God Tier Intermediate Grade, Divine Artifact Law, New Dimension Creation 1, you can open up a permanent dimensional channel to a specific world coordinate. You can open up to 3 permanent dimensional channels at the same time. Divine Artifact Law, New Dimension Creation 2, with the Sword of New Dimension Creation in hand, any attack can split the heavens and earth. It can kill existences below the true God intermediate grade. After using it, a large amount of time is needed to recover the divine power in the sword. Divine Artifact Law, New Dimension Creation 3, the Sword of New Dimension Creation nurtures a world source. After 129,600 years, it will grow into a complete boundless universe. Prompt, it can be bound to the soul. After reading it, Zhou Zhou couldn't help but gasp. Good God! This is a true God-tier divine artifact. It involves the world at every turn. He thought for a moment, then nodded. Well, at the level of a true God tier, basically, they had grasped 1 or 2 methods to destroy the world. A true God-tier divine artifact that was compatible with a true God would not be worthy of a true God tier if it did not have world-destroying means. Furthermore, there were two other things that caught his attention about this true God-tier divine artifact. First thing, it was just that the method that the divine artifact had just revealed to open up a temporary domain was not displayed on the divine artifact's information. This was recorded in his bloodline inheritance. Generally speaking, at the level of a true God-tier divine artifact, its ability could not be summarized with just a few words or functions. Therefore, the divine artifact information he saw was only the main and most powerful functions of a true divine artifact. Other than that, true God-tier divine artifacts also had other hidden functions within them, and the owner of the divine artifact would have to dig and discover it themselves. For example, the ability to open up temporary realms. And the second thing was that Heros didn't notice that the divine artifact in his hand was the true God-tier divine artifact from the legends. This was also very simple. In other words, the divine artifact was hiding itself. Divine artifacts of this level basically all had their own spirit. Most of these divine artifact spirits were very arrogant. They would only let the living beings they acknowledged see their true appearance, while the living beings they didn't acknowledge would hide their dazzling points with their divine artifacts and not let the other party discover them because the other party wasn't worthy. That was why Hera's situation happened just now. Of course, the owner of a divine artifact could also take the initiative to release their divine artifact's light. But generally speaking, unless they wanted to show off, otherwise, not many god spirits would take the initiative to reveal such a treasure to other life forms. He came back to his senses. Zhou looked at the divine artifact. The more he looked at it, the more the look of satisfaction on his face deepened. What a true God-tier divine artifact. Moreover, it was a complete true God-tier divine artifact. One had to know that even the legendary faction quests of the Elven Empire only asked him to find a fragment of a true God-tier divine artifact in a mystic realm. Even so, it also made the original Elven Empress very cautious. She was even willing to pay a huge price to help him increase his ranking on the rankings. It could be seen how precious true God-tier divine artifacts were. If the original Elven Empress knew that he had a complete true God-tier divine artifacts and 3 of them at that, even if the other party was the ruler of an empire that was about to advance to a divine kingdom and had the restrictions of the Supreme Agreement, the other party would probably do something dangerous. This was not a good time to carefully study the functions of the divine artifact. Zhou could only suppress his curiosity and put the sword of new dimension creation into the king's treasure box. Then, he looked at the other loots. Chapter 7 19-Dimensional Traveler's Divine Inheritance. The Pillar of the Empire Puppet. Zhou looked at the spoils of war behind. He only took a glance at the 12 low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine artifacts before retracting his gaze. They were all ordinary low-tier deity-level divine artifacts, nothing special. Now that he had more than 9,000 low-tier deity-level divine artifacts, he no longer had any feelings for divine artifacts of this level. He looked at the 6 divine spark fragments. 3 of the divine spark fragments were the advanced version of space oscillation, world destruction, and the other 3 divine spark fragments were the advanced version of the soul tower, soul world. He took out a piece each and began to study. After experiencing part of the high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade god spirit, Gerard had successfully comprehended the 2 law skills, world destruction and soul world. Law skill name, world destruction, law skill quality, true god-tier intermediate grade, law skill power introduction. The user controls the power of the spatial laws and detonates the spatial origin that forms an entire world, causing the entire world to fall into an endless spatial explosion until the entire world is completely destroyed by the shattered spatial origin power. Law skill name, soul world, law skill quality, true god-tier intermediate grade, law skill power description. The user will construct a soul world that is suitable for the soul to survive. The soul world can continuously absorb the soul origin energy of the soul world to nourish itself. At the same time, the soul will receive great protection in the soul world. It can ignore the soul attacks of the true God tier intermediate grade and below. It will also have a certain weakening effect on soul attacks of the true God tier intermediate grade and above. What a powerful law skill! Zhou was pleasantly surprised and tongue-tied. The former was a genuine method of destroying the world. The latter could even protect his soul from the soul attack of a true God tier. To Zhou, who liked to protect himself, this was undoubtedly very much to his liking. It's a pity that my strength is still too low. These two true God tier law skills can only be used by true gods. I'm an epic tier advanced grade lord. Even with the help of chaotic origin energy, I can probably only use the power of a mid-tier deity level. It's probably the same for the sword of new dimension creation. With my current abilities, I probably won't even be able to use those true God tier divine artifacts. Zhou thought. The standard for using true God tier divine artifacts was much higher than true God tier law skills. The latter did not have a physical body and could be used with reduced power after all. The former was a real divine artifact. The body mass was placed there. Even if Zhou had the chaotic origin energy, he probably could not use it. There was one thing that made him feel better. After today's battle, he felt that he was not far from the legendary tier level. When he reached the legendary tier level, with the chaotic origin energy in his body, he might be able to use the sword of new dimension creation and unleash the power of a mid-tier deity level divine artifact. When he becomes a low-tier deity level god spirit, he should be able to barely use a portion of the true god tier divine artifact's abilities and unleash the power of a high-tier deity level divine artifact. When he reached the high-tier deity level God Spirit, he should be able to completely control this true God-tier divine artifacts. Then, he looked at the Hero Inheritance Manual and the Book of the God Spirit. Treasure Name, Book of the God Spirit, Treasure Grade, True God-tier Intermediate Grade, Treasure Effect, a mythical book that records the path of becoming a dimensional traveler. After using it, one can embark on the path of becoming a dimensional traveler. Treasure Description, Book of God Inheritance. After using it, you can walk on a smooth path to becoming a god, but whether you can really become a god in the end depends on the user himself. Treasure Name, Hero Inheritance Secret Manual, Grade, True God Tier Intermediate Grade, Treasure Ability. After using it, you can obtain Dimensional Traveler, Heir Hero's Legacy. Introduction, Traveler, when you embark on the journey again, you must remember the meaning of the journey itself. Dimensional Traveler, Space, Dimensional Traveler, Dimensional Passage, Sword of New Dimension Creation, World Destruction, sounds like the path of a god spirit who can travel in an infinite world. Zhou could not help but be tempted. In some Infinite Stream novels, this would definitely be the cheat of the protagonist. Moreover, he was also a loyal reader of Infinite Flow novels. Therefore, at this moment, he could not help but be tempted by this god spirit path. Furthermore, the grade of this path was also intermediate true god tier grade. Honestly, it wasn't low either. Moreover, with his many bloodlines and the potential enhancement of his lord talent, it would be easy for him to surpass this level in the future. The only reason why he felt that the path of a god spirit was not suitable for him was that he was a lord of all races currently. JIS main foundation was on the high continent. Before the Supreme Will launched an activity similar to conquering the myriad worlds, he could not abandon the foundation of his territory and go to the myriad worlds alone to play. Zhou thought seriously for a moment. Then, he put away the Book of the God Spirit and the Hero Inheritance Manual regretfully. He felt that at this stage, opening up the resources of the infinite worlds was indeed very tempting. However, he still had to prioritize the foundation of the Lord of the Supreme Will. In the future, when the Supreme Will ask them to go to the myriad worlds to fight, it would not be too late for him to accept the divine inheritance. Therefore, he planned to keep the Dimensional Travelers, Book of the God Spirit, and Secret Manual of Hero Inheritance, for now and use them when the time was right. Just like how he kept a large number of Lord Talent crystal fragments and upgraded his Lord Talent when the time was right. He stopped thinking and looked at the last loots. In other words, it was a special loots dropped by the lucky star. Treasure name, the Pillar of the Empire Puppet, treasure grade, true God tier intermediate grade, treasure effect. You can obtain the loyalty of the Pillar of the Empire Puppet, which is an intermediate grade high tier deity level, after you drip your blood and it recognizes you as its master. This violent storm demon spirit lord had hero skills, space blade, hero skills, space travel, law skills, space oscillation, law skills, soul tower, and other abilities. Furthermore, it was equipped with a high-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifact, space-splitting blade, a legendary tier advanced grade equipment, space crystal spirit bell armor, a legendary tier advanced grade equipment, space-stepping invisible boots, a legendary tier advanced grade equipment, soul nurturing jade, a legend. It was equipped with a high-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifact, space-splitting blade, a legendary tier advanced grade equipment, space crystal spirit bell armor, a legendary tier advanced grade equipment, space-stepping invisible boots, a legendary tier advanced grade equipment, soul nurturing jade tier advanced grade equipment such as the Vajra world protection armor. Not only is Pillar of the Empire Puppet powerful and loyal to its master, it will automatically recover to the form of a puppet when more than half of its body is destroyed. At the same time, it will begin to absorb elemental energy to heal itself until it completely recovers and can fight again. Current maximum number of self-repairs of the Pillar of the Empire Puppet, 3/3, prompt, after the enhancement of your Collector Lord Talent, the current upper limit of the self-repair of the Violent Storm Demon Spirit Lord Puppet has increased to September 9th. As a collector, after careful observation, you discovered that you can increase the upper limit of the self-repair of this treasure by sacrificing scarlet crystals. It can be increased to 12/12. At special moments, you can also activate your collector's power and temporarily increase the number of uses of this treasure. However, this overdraft of the treasure will permanently reduce the strength of the Pillar of the Empire Puppet by a small level. Treasure description: it was dropped by a high-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit after its death. It was condensed under a magical power and is a good protective treasure. Chapter 720 War List. TSK, not bad. I obtained 9 chances to obtain the help of a high-tier deity-level Scarlet God Spirit for no reason. As for the Scarlet Crystals, don't I have as much as I want? Without thinking, Zhou took out a large pile of unpurified scarlet crystals from the king's treasure box and offered them all to Gerard's puppet, the Pillar of the Empire. Soon, after sacrificing about 3 fanatic believer-level scarlet divine crystals, the upper limit of the use of Gerard's puppet, the Pillar of the Empire, became 12/12. 12 times. That's enough for a long time. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. In a short period of time, the Pillar of the Empire puppet could be used as his regular combat strength. Then, he put away the Pillar of the Empire puppet and looked at the battlefield before him. At this moment, most of the spoils of war on the battlefield had been extracted. Bai Yun and the others were leading the soldiers to prepare to return to the galaxy. Zhou waited for a while before all the soldiers boarded the spaceship. Then, the galaxy activated and returned to the capital city in the blink of an eye. Blazing Sun Kingdom. The moment Zhou returned to his blessed land, Bai Yun walked over with a list of loots. Your Majesty, please take a look. Bai Yun handed the list of loots to Zhou. Zhou took it and looked at it. Not counting the more than 600 legendary tier Scarlet Fog monsters and the 7 Scarlet God Spirits that Zhou had already retrieved the loots. Today, they had killed a total of 83 million fog monsters. With the enhancement of the King of Loots and the title of the Strongest Lord, they obtained a total of 262,600 Legendary Tier Mist Cores, 2,806,000 Epic Tier Mist Cores, 2,178,000 Extraordinary Tier Mist Cores, 43,750,000 Diamond Tier Mist Cores, 90,125,000 White Platinum Tier Mist Cores, 178,500,000 Yellow Gold Tier Mist Cores, 368,750,000 White Silver Tier Mist Cores, and 717 million Green Bronze Tier Mist Cores. More than 2,180,000,000 skill books and 2,546,000,000 equipment. Basic materials, 5,099,000,000 units. There were more than 15 million units of basic elemental gem resources. More than 6 million units of high-level elemental gem resources. 1 million origin crystals. 80,600 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments. 45 Holy Spirit tier scarlet divine crystals. 16 hero inheritance secret manuals. Then, in terms of the increase in the combat strength of the soldiers, the total number and strength of Zhou's soldiers had also increased greatly throughout the day. Other than the 27,807,373 fog monsters and the 2,051,858 insects that he had instigated from the Insect Lord, the 20% Insight defection troops handed over to him by the Lords of the Star Alliance had also reached 3,122,570 fog monsters. All three of them added up to a total of 32,981,801 fog monsters. And now, excluding the troops of the Star Alliance, the total number of troops under Zhou's command had already reached 532,529,549 soldiers. Among them, there were 854,561 Black Iron rank soldiers, 1,215,415 Green Bronze tier soldiers, 455,651,750 White Silver tier soldiers, 30,078,850 Yellow Gold tier soldiers, White Platinum tier 23,081,822 soldiers, Diamond tier 15,229,750 of them, 4,405,600 Extraordinary tier soldiers, 21,770 Epic tier soldiers and 31 Legendary tier soldiers. In addition, Butcher, Wuxia had broken through to low-tier deity level intermediate grade. 10 Directional Martial God, Feng Luo had broken through to the low-tier deity level elementary grade. Blood Fire Sword Spirit, Bai Yun and Qi Xiantian had broken through to legendary tier advanced grade. Dragon Horse Spear General, Wu Xian and Ghost God General, Luo Sheng had broken through to the legendary level. Dragon King of Volcano and Destruction, Nazario, Dragon King of War and Strength, Extreme Dragon, Soul Arrow, Wu Tu had broken through to the legendary tier elementary grade. Original Spirit Race, Ansel had broken through to extraordinary tier advanced grade. The others also had different increases in strength. Zhou looked at the list of battles and nodded in satisfaction. In fact, the number of fog monsters they killed today was even millions less than the fog monsters they killed yesterday. But the key was there were many experts in the refined flame Scarlet Legion. This resulted in his spoils of war and the improvement of the soldiers' strength being much higher than yesterday. However, it was not as if he did not consume any energy today. For example, the 10 Apocalypse Satellites 9 and Bai Yun's myriad spirit army had consumed more than 100,000 legendary tier mist cores. However, compared to the final outcome, it was not a loss. Instead, it was a huge profit. Hence, Zhou did not mind. Now, the Lords of the Star Alliance have a total of more than 41 million troops. Including the soldiers under my command, there are more than 570 million soldiers. At this thought, Zhou nodded in his heart. After he cleared the monster ranch tomorrow, the total number of soldiers under his command would exceed 1 billion. This was not comparable to the Elven Empire, but in terms of military strength alone. It was no longer inferior to the Night Empire. Of course, this was in a situation where they were purely comparing military strength. If one were to compare the foundations of both sides. Zhou thought for a moment. It seemed that he was not bad either. Just the foundation represented by the more than 9,000 low-tier deity-level divine artifacts. Not to mention the Night Empire, even if the Elven Empire came, they would be dumbfounded and shout that they had not seen the world. As for the Divine Kingdom, Zhou thought about it and found it hard to judge. This was because almost all divine kingdoms had their own divine artifact forgers. The number of divine artifacts that a divine kingdom lord faction possessed would only be limited to how many materials they had to forge divine artifacts. Under such circumstances, no one knew how many divine artifacts a divine kingdom lord faction could have. However, there was a universal law. The higher the level of the divine artifact, the rarer it was. Regarding that point, the divine kingdom lords were no exception. Bai Yun, this is for you. Hand them over to the soldiers who performed the most heroically and obtained the most military merits in today's battle. Zhou took out the 16 hero inheritance manuals from the vast amount of loots and handed them to Bai Yun. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun took the 16 hero inheritance manuals with a solemn expression and left. Seeing this, Zhou asked Atli to call Zhao Changshu over and handed him the special blueprint of the Monument of War Heroes. When Zhao Changshu first saw this special building blueprint, he couldn't hide the joy on his face. He thought of something and his expression suddenly became troubled. Your Majesty, there are many high-level talents in construction in our territory now. It's not difficult to build it. I'm even confident that I can build this war hero monument before tomorrow night. But, I'm just afraid that we won't be able to use it after it's built. Zhao Changshu looked at Zhou carefully. Zhou was stunned when he heard that. Then, he came to his senses and could not help but be speechless. He almost forgot that ever since his territory had a heaven-defying divine art like the small resurrection spell, the soldiers in his territory had always maintained a 0 mortality rate. Which meant, until now, not a single soldier under his command had truly died on the battlefield. Then there was the problem. Since no soldiers had died on the battlefield, where would the heroic spirits on the War Hero Monument come from? If there were no heroic spirits on the War Hero Monument, it would naturally not be a problem. He would let the heroic spirits protect his territory in times of danger. Let's build it first. Zhou thought for a long time before saying this. Chapter 721 Upgrading the Territory. Okay. Zhao Changshu nodded with a smile and left. Zhou thought about it again. In the end, he could not think of a solution and could only give up. I hope this war hero monument will never be used. Zhou had another thought. Then, he walked out of his advanced grade Lord's Paradise and looked at the grand building in front of him. I can upgrade my territory now. Zhou thought. He had obtained more than 6 million units of high-level elemental gems in today's spoils of war. In addition, he already had more than 3 million units of life elemental gems and death elemental gems. With so many gems, it was enough for him to upgrade his territory once. He still had more than 1 million units of high-level life elemental gems and death elemental gems left. The next second, with 2 trillion units of basic materials, 1,000 extraordinary tier mist cores, 500,000 origin crystals, 10 million units of basic elemental gems, 9 million units of high-level elemental gems, and 3 extraordinary tier territory tokens disappeared. Boom! A golden light immediately covered the entire advanced grade Lord's Paradise. A moment later, the golden light dissipated. The clearly expanded beginner-grade Lord's Paradise appeared in front of Zhou and a text notification appeared. Congratulations, your advanced grade Lord's Paradise has successfully been upgraded to an extraordinary tier intermediate grade building. Your territory has been successfully upgraded to extraordinary tier intermediate grade. Your extraordinary tier intermediate grade 5 elements amplification array has been successfully upgraded to extraordinary tier intermediate grade. Territory stone tablet endurance increased to 5 billion/5 billion. Your territory has expanded to 200,000 km x 200,000 km x 100,000 m. All fog monsters within the territory of the new territory have been expelled. Scarlet fog will not appear in any of your territories. You have received an upgrade reward, basic building blueprint treasure chest, extraordinary tier intermediate grade. Lord talent notification, the upper limit of the enemy lord's power that you can use insight defection to increase to high tier deity level elementary grade. Lord talent hint, your monster ranches can be upgraded. Lord talent hint, your mysterious caravan faction has increased. Lord talent hint, the strength of the clergy in your goddess of lives shelter has increased. Not bad, not bad. I've finally advanced the territory to an extraordinary tier intermediate grade. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. Then, he looked at the next requirement for the territory to level up. Construction upgrade, 1 trillion units of wood, 1 trillion units of fine sand, 1 trillion units of metal, 1 trillion units of stone, 5,000 extraordinary tier mist core, 1 million origin crystals, 10 million units of basic elemental gems, 10 million units of thunder elemental gems, 10 million units of life elemental gems, 10 million units of death elemental gems, 10 extraordinary tier cities, 100 extraordinary tier lifestyle professionals, 10,000 extraordinary tier military professionals, 10 extraordinary tier territory tokens. Zhou looked at the upgrade request and frowned deeply. Basic materials, mist cores, origin crystals, as well as basic elemental gems, thunder elemental gems, extraordinary tier class life class integration, and combat professionals were not a problem. However, wasn't 10 million units of life elemental gems and 10 million units of death elemental gems too ridiculous? The previous upgrades only required 3 million units of high-level elemental gems each. It had increased by 3 times by now. He looked at the more than 1 million life elemental gems and death elemental gems in the king's treasure box in silence. There's too much I need. Moreover, these high-level elemental gems are not the only ones we lack. There are also 10 extraordinary territory tier territories and 10 extraordinary territory tokens. After I took down the Ice Demon Kingdom, there are only 7 extraordinary tier regional territories in the kingdom. I still need 3 extraordinary tier territories to satisfy it. As for the extraordinary tier territory tokens, I don't have any of them now. I've used them all as upgrade materials for my territory. Zhou had a headache. Together, they needed him to occupy 13 extraordinary tier regional territories. Under normal circumstances, an extraordinary tier regional territory was enough to become the capital city for establishing a beginner kingdom. Which meant these 13 extraordinary tier regional territories might mean that he needed to occupy 13 beginner kingdoms. 13 beginner kingdoms, where can I find them? No, there really are. Zhou suddenly perked up and reacted. He suddenly remembered something. Previously, when he attacked the Titan Kingdom and the Nether Bark Kingdom, these two people of foreign races knew that they could not defeat Zhou's Blazing Sun Kingdom, so they secretly facilitated the Ice Demon Kingdom to unite a total of 16 people of foreign races to deal with Zhou together. However, not only did the alliance of the people of foreign races not defeat Zhou, he also led his troops and wiped out more than 20 million of them. Since that time, Zhou had formed a feud with the 16 people of foreign races and the Ice Demon Kingdom behind them. Even later, during Zhou's founding ceremony, they had sent their heroes to cause trouble, but they were easily dealt with by Zhou and his subordinates. The Ice Demon Kingdom had already been destroyed by him. As for the 16 people of foreign races, they were still in their respective territories because Zhou did not have time to deal with them. How could he continue watching? I'll take them. Without hesitation, Zhou made his decision. After completing the Night Empire's faction quests, I should be free for a period of time before the battlefield of the gods opens. During this period of time, I can completely send my billions of troops to destroy these 16 people of foreign races who have a grudge against me. When the time comes, I should be able to satisfy the requirement to upgrade my territory again. Zhou Zhou thought. Moreover, he had not forgotten about it. Among the 16 people of foreign races, there was also a spiritual Gu kingdom with good bloodline potential. Their 10,000 Gu insect royal bloodline should be able to improve his chaos human race bloodline to a higher level. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou immediately asked Aaliyah to call Wu Tu over. In the advanced grade Lord's Paradise. Greetings, Your Majesty. After Wu Tu came over, he immediately said respectfully. Wu Tuesday. From today onwards, the Heavenly Map Army will be expanded with 10 million veterans and 40 million new recruits. At the same time, I will get Wuxia to assign you 10 Black Ghosts, 5 Starry Nights, and 1 Galaxy. Next, the Heavenly Map Army will be in charge of 2 intelligence exploration quests. On the one hand, it's to continue exploring and collecting the current intelligence information I need to kill in the King of 10,000 Kings activities. Zhou Zhou said. The targets he mentioned were naturally the existences that the Supreme will hated through the eye of the heaven's anger. After killing them, Zhou Zhou would obtain a large number of faction points as a reward. Naturally, he would not give up. He had already killed Gerard, and there were still 4 targets that he had yet to come into contact with. Wu Tu and his Heavenly Map Army had to collect information on these targets. The second quest. The 16 people of foreign races that the Nether Bark Kingdom and the Titan Kingdom allied with last time, in preparing to make a move on them after some time. During this period of time, you also have to gather information on them. Of these 2 quests, the former is the main and the latter is the secondary. As for the specific arrangements, you can figure it out yourself. Zhou Zhou said. It was just 16 beginner kingdoms that he had once severely injured. To the current Zhou Zhou, dealing with them was not a difficult task. Therefore, the focus of Zhou Zhou's intelligence gathering was still the remaining 4 targets that had been discovered by the eye of the heaven's anger. Yes, Your Majesty. I'll definitely do it well. Actually, I've been collecting information on those 16 people of foreign races for a long time. If Your Majesty needs it, I'll organize all their information tomorrow night and send it to Your Majesty. As for the targets of the 4 Scarlet Forces, please give me some time, Your Majesty. It won't be long. Wu Tu said respectfully and confidently. Okay. Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction. This kid was a little young, he had never been disappointed in his work. Wu Tu left after that and Zhou Zhou walked out of advanced grade Lord's Paradise and came to the Gate of Summoning. Chapter 722 Upgrading the Gate of Summoning. Upgrade of the Lord Talent. Zhou Zhou came to the Gate of Summoning and spent 40 billion units of basic materials and 2,000 extraordinary tier mist cores to upgrade it to the extraordinary tier intermediate grade. A text notification appeared. Congratulations, your Gate of Summoning has been upgraded to an extraordinary tier intermediate grade building. You can summon plus 600 subjects every day. You will definitely summon 400 professionals every day among the subjects. Prompt, under the influence of the unique title of the race, Glory of the Pioneer 6, you can summon 11,200 subjects a day. You will definitely summon 407 professionals every day among the subjects. 7 of the professionals will have the same level as your territory. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. After the Gate of Summoning was upgraded to the extraordinary tier intermediate grade, the number of basic summoning subjects had reached a total of 1,600. After being enhanced by Glory of the Pioneer 6, it directly doubled to 11,200 people. Moreover, there were 407 professionals among them. Not bad, not bad. Even though the number of these subjects was almost worlds apart from the number of subjects he recruited every day because of his beauty lord talent, however, in terms of profession level, it was far superior to those refugees who came because of the beauty lord talent. Most importantly, they were free. Zhou Zhou naturally would not mind. Then, he looked at the upgrade requirements for the Gate of Summoning. Construction upgrade, 50 billion units of wood, 50 billion units of fine sand, 50 billion units of metal, 50 billion units of stone, 5,000 extraordinary tier mist core, territory level upgraded to extraordinary tier advanced grade. This upgrade requirement is really easy. Zhou Zhou sighed for the umpteenth time. Then, he returned to the advanced grade Lord's Paradise and asked Atli to call Mu Gu, Zheng Fugue, and Carol Moeli over. Soon, they came over. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The three of them said respectfully. "The territory has been upgraded. Let me understand your respective improvements." Zhou Zhou said. Mu Gu was the first to stand up with a calm expression as usual. "Your Majesty, my current strength is already that of an extraordinary tier intermediate grade rancher. I already have a total of 12,000 monster shepherds under my command. In addition, the number of monster ranches under my command has increased from 500 to 600 today. Moreover, the maximum capacity of each monster ranch has increased from 500,000 to 600,000. Moreover, the area of my ranchland continent has increased from more than 800,000 square kilometers to more than 1,000,000 square kilometers." Mu Gu reported truthfully. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly. "Which meant 360 million fog monsters will appear in Mu Gu's monster ranch the next day. Coupled with his king of loots." A smile gradually appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. The gains from his monster ranch tomorrow would probably exceed his imagination. Use the additional 100 monster ranches to nurture the king of yellow gold. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and said. He already had enough violent storm spirit professionals. On the other hand, the number of king of yellow gold troops was relatively small. There were even times when the relatively small number of yellow gold tier kings could not protect the violent storm spirit behind them, allowing a portion of the enemies to pass them, forcing the violent storm spirit to face this group of close combat agility type enemies. Even though the violent storm spirit's close combat ability was not bad, it was definitely not their spellcasting strength. Therefore, this definitely wouldn't do. That was why Zhou Zhou assigned these 100 new monster ranches to the King of Yellow Gold. Even if he took 10,000 steps back, it would not be a bad thing to have more troops in the front row. Yes, Your Majesty. Mu Gu said respectfully. Then, he retreated to the three of them. Carol Moeli stood up. Your Majesty, the shelter of the Goddess of Life has also advanced to the extraordinary tier intermediate grade after our territory was upgraded to the extraordinary tier intermediate grade. The shelter of the Goddess of Life now has a total of 12 million clergymen, 12 million priests, 12 million nuns, and 122,000 life paladins. And my strength has also jumped to mid-tier deity level elementary grade. Carol Moeli said. Zhou Zhou acknowledged. Even though it did not increase much, it was not bad. After Carol Moeli left, Zheng Fugue stood up. Your Majesty, the number of our mysterious merchant has increased from 5,000 to 80,000. The number of carriages transporting goods has also increased to 30,000. In addition, the strength of all the mysterious merchant has also increased to the extraordinary tier intermediate grade. The internal space of each mysterious merchant's mysterious business ring has also increased from the original 1 million cubic meters to 2 million cubic meters. Zheng Fugue chuckled. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he chatted with the three of them for a while before they left. After they left, Zhou Zhou asked Atli to call Feng Luo over. A moment later. Feng Luo came over. Greetings, Your Majesty. Feng Luo said respectfully. How does it feel to become a god spirit? Zhou Zhou looked at him. I'm terrified. Feng Luo lowered his head even more. There was no arrogance on his face. Zhou Zhou looked at him admiringly. This Feng Luo. From the beginning, he had walked his own path as a sword-shield soldier. Right on the heels of that, he relied on the Zun Wu inheritance he had given the other party to become the new ten-directional martial emperor. He had also relied on his obsession with martial arts and comprehension to become the martial arts department's god spirit, ten-directional martial god. This person. Even though it looked ordinary on the surface, he had actually reached this stage without anyone knowing. Even a prodigy like Qi Xiantian was actually behind the other party. Zhou Zhou could not help but click his tongue in wonder. Silently improving his genius. This is for you. Consider it my reward for you killing the enemy god spirits alone today. Zhou Zhou took out a spatial ring and threw it to the other party. Feng Luo hurriedly took it. When he saw what was in this spatial ring, his body immediately trembled. Then, he immediately looked up at Zhou Zhou in disbelief and excitement. Your Majesty, isn't this too precious? Feng Luo was a little afraid to accept the gift given to him by His Majesty. This was because the spatial ring contained nothing else. It was a set of 6 low-tier divine artifacts and the bottle of high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade potion rewarded after killing Gerard. A potential advancement potion of this level. Not to mention god spirits below the high-tier deity level. Even a true god tier would probably be willing to take action. Many true god tier had their own subordinates or descendants. Any true god tier would be willing to have a subordinate or descendant with high-tier deity-level potential in their faction after he made a move once. It was precisely because Feng Luo knew how precious this potion was that he did not dare to accept His Majesty's reward. Chapter 723 touched Feng Luo. Zhe Wu joins the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Take it. You're not the only one with a divine artifact. In the future, I'll reward he with a divine artifact that suits every low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit in our territory. As for the potential advancement potion, your potential is a little low. Even with the enhancement of the Sun-Moon Star Sword, it only increased your potential to the legendary tier advance grade. If not for your dragon slaying will allowing you to bathe in high-level bloodlines and break through the limit of your potential, you would almost have no chance of breaking through to the god spirit realm. However, even though your potential is low, your comprehension and resistance far exceed the world. Moreover, you've been with me for a while. I've seen everything you've done, your attitude towards the subjects and soldiers, and your loyalty to me. You're not bad. This king will never mistreat my subordinates. I'm willing to give you this bottle of potion. Don't think too much about it. If you really think this potion is precious, just improve yourself in the future and don't disappoint yourself, this king, and the subjects behind us. Zhou Zhou stood up and patted Feng Luo's shoulder. I remember your dream is to open up a peaceful place for living beings who have suffered from war, right? He asked. Yes, Your Majesty. I didn't expect you to still remember. Tears appeared in Feng Luo's eyes. I remember many of your dreams. Zhou Zhou smiled. Bai Yun's dream is to become the most outstanding general under me. Uncle Wu's dream is to retire after peace. Wu Tu's dream at first was to supplement his family's expenses. Later on, after this dream was completed, his dream became to draw a map of the entire high continent. Zhao Changsha's dream is to build all kinds of special buildings. There are also many, many soldiers and subjects. I remember their dreams. Zhou Zhou looked at Feng Luo seriously. So since this is your dream, you need to become stronger and stronger. And this bottle of potion is the power you need to realize your dream. After saying that, he sat down again. Thank you, Your Majesty. I won't be able to repay you even if I die 10,000 times. Feng Luo knelt on one knee, tears in his tiger eyes. Come on. Go back and consume this bottle of potion. There's a battle tomorrow. Zhou Zhou waved his hand casually. Yes, Your Majesty. Feng Luo wiped his tears forcefully and bade farewell. Zhou Zhou was about to call Atli over when he heard a knock on the door. Come in. Zhou Zhou said. Atli walked in. Your Majesty, His Excellency Heras and His Excellency Zhe Wu request an audience. She said respectfully. Let them in. Zhou Zhou was stunned before saying. Yes, Your Majesty. Atli turned around and left. Soon, Heras and Zhe Wu walked in. Greetings, Your Majesty. Heras smiled and patted Zhe Wu beside him, causing sparks to fly on his body. Zhe Wu shook the fur on his body and dissipated the cremation. Your Majesty, I've just told he that I've already joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom. After this Snow Wolf heard my conditions, he thought for a moment and agreed. Heras laughed. Which god spirit wouldn't be tempted after hearing the benefits of joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom? Zhe Wu was only an ordinary mid-tier deity level, so he naturally could not resist such temptation. Zhou Zhou was overjoyed. A mid-tier deity-level elementary-grade god spirit joining his Blazing Sun Kingdom at this time would definitely increase the upper limit of his power greatly. Welcome to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Zhou Zhou stood up and said seriously. Zhe Wu is willing to serve His Majesty. Zhe Wu nodded. Zhou Zhou nodded and said, if that's the case. I gave you the divine artifacts I lent you previously. As soon as these words were spoken, not to mention Zhe Wu, even Heras' eyes widened. Really? The two gods said in unison. Of course it's true. In the future, this king will give him a set of low-tier deity-level divine artifacts to every god spirit who joins my Blazing Sun Kingdom. However, if you want a higher-level divine artifact, you need to make contributions. Zhou Zhou said with a smile. He was about to pile up a small mountain of low-tier deity-level divine artifacts. However, he still had to cherish divine artifacts above the mid-tier deity level. That's great. Heras and Zhe Wu looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. This was a total of 6 divine artifacts. It was enough to make countless god spirits below the true god tier jealous. He actually gave it to them for nothing. If they had known earlier, they would have joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom earlier. Oh yes. This is the divine artifact we agreed on previously. Zhou Zhou took out a high-tier deity-level divine artifact from his king's treasure box and handed it to Heras. This divine artifact was called the Flame Spirit Divine Armor. Focusing on protecting the main body and soul could also increase the power of fire stats law skills by about 30%. He could hand it over to Heras. Thank you, Your Majesty. Heras took the divine artifact and stroked it excitedly, as if it was his lover. This divine artifact is too suitable for me. After Heras recognized the divine artifact as his master, he knew the ability of the divine artifact. Then, his eyes immediately lit up. As long as Your Excellency likes it. He turned around and saw Zhe Wu's eager gaze. Your Excellency Zhe Wu, you don't have to be envious. In the future, as long as Your Excellency can personally kill a mid-tier deity level or assist in killing a higher-level god spirit, I can also give Your Excellency a mid-tier deity level divine artifact suitable for you. Zhou Zhou promised. Really? Zhe Wu's snow-white wolf eyes lit up. You're joking. Zhou Zhou said this idiom in the common language of the continent. Zhe Wu immediately understood. Okay. Zhe Wu nodded seriously. With the divine artifacts that Zhou Zhou had given, it was not difficult for he to kill a mid-tier deity level as long as he was careful. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. Then, he called Vicky and Guoqiao over and gave them 2 sets of divine artifacts. As Guoqiao's performance was very outstanding when he killed the Scarlet God Spirit today, Zhou Zhou rewarded him with a mid-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine artifact. It did not matter if he could not use it for the time being. He would reward them first. Otherwise, with the results of the other party killing a high-tier deity-level god spirit and assisting in killing a high-tier deity-level god spirit, Zhou Zhou would be too embarrassed to only reward him with an ordinary low-tier deity divine artifact. Then, Zhou chatted with them for a while before they left. After they left, Zhou took out the sword of new dimension creation. He looked at the divine sword in his hand and gradually became serious. Then, he continuously injected the chaotic origin energy in his body into the sword of new dimension creation. However, no matter how much chaotic origin energy he injected, this sword of new dimension creation seemed to be unable to wake him up. There was no reaction at all. Indeed, it's still too difficult for me to activate this true god-tier intermediate grade divine artifact with my current epic tier advanced grade chaotic origin energy. Zhou sighed inwardly. True god-tier divine artifacts were indeed true god-tier divine artifacts. Even the chaos human bloodline could not defy the heavens to the extent of using such a divine artifact above their level. He put away the sword of new dimension creation and prepared to continue comprehending the incomplete Lord Law behind the hand of wealth. But at this moment, there was another knock on the door. However, instead of Aliyah and her sister's voices, another female voice came. "Husband. Haven't you rested yet?" It was Wuxia. Zhou was stunned before getting up to open the door. At the same time, in the cultivation room of Qi Zuanshan's residence, Qi Xiantian sat cross-legged in midair, the accompanying divine sword circling around him. Even the nameless Feng Luo has comprehended his own law skill and reached the achievement true immortal realm. It's time for me to take the last step. He closed his eyes and prepared to break through. Chapter 724 I can defeat someone at Grand Unity Realm. In the bedroom of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise, Zhou opened his eyes in a daze and woke up. Then, he turned around and saw Leia, who was still half asleep. A faint smile appeared on his face. He kissed the other party and habitually opened the world channel. "Brothers, it's the 5th day. Did you obtain any results in your own camp? Don't mention it. Fuck, I'm still bribing a diplomat near a kingdom. I've already invested a lot. I hope I can farm diplomacy in the next 2 days and join this kingdom. I was lucky enough to complete a yellow gold tier faction quests in a kingdom faction. I already have 8,000 faction points. Envy. Envy +1. How did I obtain the faction mission? Can you give me some pointers? Brother? Big brother? Come on, don't be petty. Fuck, I spent so much time and energy on the mist cores, but I only found out today that that person is not a kingdom noble at all, but a swindler pretending to be a noble to deceive the mist cores. Everyone, be careful. Don't be deceived like me." Zhou clicked his tongue in wonder. In order to do this event, the lords of the cerulean planet had really displayed their abilities. And from the looks of it, there were also many unlucky people who suffered losses. At this moment, 4 people sent Zhou a message at the same time. They were the Military Industry Lord, the Dragon Lady Lord, the Mystic Heaven Lord, and the Undead Lord. Zhou looked at them and realized that the messages they sent were all about how they were going to establish a kingdom. All of them sent an invitation to Zhou, hoping to invite his backer to attend the founding ceremony. Zhou was a little speechless. Then, he pulled them into a group chat. "Lord of the Blazing Sun, you guys chose the same day to build your kingdom. Military Industry Lord, ahem, we all feel that today is a good day and an auspicious day. Moreover, we don't want to delay the establishment of the kingdom for too long, so we discussed and decided to build the kingdom today. Dragon Lady Lord, there's another reason. Actually, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. The 4 of us don't want to fall behind the other party in building a kingdom, but we're all your people, so we don't want to fight too hard. Therefore, we chose to build a kingdom on the same day or even at the same time. Mystic Heaven Lord, Your Majesty, the spatial teleportation array you requested has been built. You can come over directly through the spatial teleportation array. Our founding ceremony will be held at the Alliance headquarters. Undead Lord, Your Majesty, can you bring me along the next time you start a war? My Undead Resurrection Lord talent can revive dead life forms to become my subordinates. You will definitely conquer faster with me helping you. The corners of Zhou Zhou's mouth twitched when he saw the Undead Lord's words. I, the King of Loots, let you, a lord who has mastered undead resurrection, follow me around in battle? How can I retrieve the loot if you resurrect the dead? Sacrificing me for you? Your lord talent is naturally at odds with mine. Lord of the Blazing Sun at Undead Lord, next time for sure. Lord of the Blazing Sun, the four of you are establishing your kingdom at the same time. This king can't participate all at the same time. How about this? Your founding ceremony shouldn't be over for a while. I'll go to all of your places to show myself, then go to the others to participate in the other founding ceremonies. Zhou Zhou felt like a professional ribbon cutter, but he had to go. Firstly, he was also quite interested in the founding ceremonies of other countries and wanted to join in the fun. In any case, the faction quests of the Night Empire could be easily resolved by Bai Yun and the others with an army of billions, Heras, and other god spirits even if he did not go. Secondly, he had previously promised the military industry lord and the others that he would see the capital party behind them in the future. In other words, the descendants of the kingdoms that had been destroyed. This trip could be considered a way to meet them. Thirdly, the military industry lord and the others could be considered half his own people. As their backer, he had to go over and show his face to leave an impression in their hearts. At this moment, the military industry lord and the others were already a little embarrassed about the time they built their kingdom. How could he dare to object? He immediately agreed. Lord of the Blazing Sun, when will you start the founding ceremony? Mystic Heaven Lord, 8 p.m. Dragon Lady Lord, 8 p.m. Military Industry Lord, same. Undead Lord, I'm also at 8 o'clock. Lord of the Blazing Sun, alright, this king will pass through the teleportation array and go to your places to participate in the ceremony. Dragon Lady Lord, Military Industry Lord, Mystic Heaven Lord, Undead Lord, welcome, Your Majesty. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he closed the private chat and dived into the world channel to watch the chats of the lords of Cerulean Planet. At this moment, there was a commotion beside him. Leah had woken up. You always wake up before me. Leah lay on the bed and smiled quietly at Zhou Zhou. I'm used to this. Zhou Zhou smiled. I'll go cook. Leah did not stay in bed. She got up, put on her clothes, washed up and went to cook. Seeing this, Zhou Zhou also got up, washed up and ate a meal with Leah before walking out of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise. However, as soon as he walked out of the Blessed Land, he saw someone waiting quietly for him at the door. Greetings, Your Majesty. Qi Xiantian said respectfully. Why are you? Zhou Zhou was stunned. Then, he sensed the change in his aura and his expression suddenly became pleasantly surprised. You broke through. I was lucky enough to comprehend a trace of the true meaning of the Sword Dao Law and finally reached the achievement True Immortal slot. Qi Xiantian sighed with emotion. The Law of Sword Dao? Then aren't you a Sword Immortal now? Zhou Zhou was stunned for a moment before taking a deep breath. Being a Qi practitioner was the top profession that surpassed many other professions. The Sword Immortals among the Qi practitioners were top existences among the Qi practitioners. It was said that such Sword Immortals pursued the path of breaking all techniques with a single strike or creating all techniques with a single strike. The only thing they believed in and wanted was the sword in their hands. Hence, even though it was very difficult for such Sword Immortals to be born, once one was born, he was the top existence of the same level. Even killing enemies above their level was as easy as eating and drinking to them. No wonder Qi Xiantian had never become a hero with his comprehension ability. Only then did Zhou Zhou understand. To a sword immortal, everything other than the sword Dao could be considered an existence that disturbed their Dao hearts. What they pursued was supreme sword intent to reach the pinnacle. The hero slot was important, but it was also an external object to them. Therefore, Qi Xiantian naturally would not waste his time and energy on becoming a hero. What level of enemy do you think you can deal with now? Zhou Zhou asked. I can even defeat someone at the Grand Unity Realm. Qi Xiantian said softly. However, his voice was quite firm. The Scarlet Mystic Immortal Sword on his back seemed to have heard his words and actually let out a series of sword whistles. Zhou Zhou looked at Qi Xiantian and a smile appeared on his face. Chapter 725 Easily breaking through a billion. Those above true immortals were Golden Immortal Realm. Above the Golden Immortal Realm was the Grand Unity Golden Immortal. The Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm was an existence comparable to a high-tier deity-level God Spirit. Which meant, Qi Xiantian, who had just advanced to the low-tier deity level, was already confident in dealing with high-tier deity-level existences. Qi Xiantian, who had just advanced to the low-tier deity level, was already confident in dealing with high-tier deity-level existences. Putting aside the actual combat ability of a sword immortal, Zhou Zhou had discovered the grade of the Scarlet Mystic Immortal Sword on Qi Xuantian's back when it let out a sword howl. It was actually a high-tier deity-level divine artifact, a Grand Unity Realm immortal artifact. This immortal sword was already a low-tier deity-level divine artifact when Qi Xiantian first arrived in the Blazing Sun Kingdom and was only at the epic tier. Now that Qi Xiantian had advanced to the low-tier deity-level elementary grade, this immortal sword had actually advanced 2 levels in a row and become a high-tier deity-level divine artifact. Even Zhou Zhou was a little envious. As expected of Qi Xiantian, who had the heavenly sword immortal body and the immortal sword summoning. However, envy was useless. Unless these two goods came from the Lord's shop, it would be very difficult for Zhou Zhou to have the same talent. Therefore, Zhou Zhou quickly calmed down. Here. Your gift for becoming an immortal. Zhou Zhou threw a spatial ring over. Qi Xiantian hurriedly caught it. When he saw the 6 divine artifacts inside, his body immediately trembled. Then, he immediately knelt on one knee. Thank you for the reward, Your Majesty. He said excitedly. And could not help but be excited. That was a total of 6 true immortal realm immortal artifacts. Even if it was the myriad sword immortal sect in the immortal world, he would have to do a large number of sect quests and pay a huge price to obtain them. This process might take hundreds or even thousands of years. He did not expect His Majesty to give him a set of immortal artifacts. How could he have imagined this? Don't worry too much. Every low-tier deity-level God Spirit in our Blazing Sun Kingdom will have such a divine artifact. Use them well. Don't disappoint me. If you can make more contributions, this king will give you stronger immortal artifacts in the future. Zhou Zhou said. Yes, Your Majesty. Hearing His Majesty's words, even Qi Xiantian was so excited that he almost became unstable. He had experienced His Majesty's generosity a long time ago. Therefore, he did not doubt the authenticity of His Majesty's promise at all. At this moment, he was even more glad that he had chosen to come to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and become His Majesty's subject. Then, he chatted with Qi Xiantian for a while more before he left. After he left, Zhou Zhou saw another person walking over before he could go to the gate of summoning. It was none other than Feng Luo. Greetings, Your Majesty. Feng Luo's face was filled with gratitude. Zhou Zhou looked at his expression and opened his attribute list. Indeed, the other party's potential had increased to the high-tier deity level intermediate grade. how does it feel to have your potential increased? Zhou Zhou smiled. I feel that there are no more doubts ahead. Feng Luo said emotionally. Previously, he had already felt a little strained when advancing to the legendary tier because of his limited potential. And now, he could feel it. Low-tier deity level elementary grade was far from his limit. He already had a greater future. Therefore, he was even more grateful to His Majesty now. It was just that Zhou Zhou had yet to become a god spirit. Otherwise, he would have become Zhou Zhou's Holy Spirit tier believer in minutes. Zhou Zhou smiled. Then, he chatted with Feng Luo as they walked towards the Gate of Summoning. In front of the Gate of Summoning, Zhou Zhou looked at the huge Gate of Summoning in front of him and chanted the summoning in his heart. The next second, the Gate of Summoning suddenly lit up with a bright white light. Then, a large number of subjects walked out. After spending 100 extraordinary tier mist cores to accelerate, the 14,700 new subjects quickly walked out of the Gate of Summoning. Greetings, my lord, X14,700. The 14,700 new subjects said respectfully. Welcome to Blazing Sun City. Zhou Zhou nodded and smiled. Then, he asked all the professionals to stand up and realized that he had summoned a total of 496 professionals this time. Among them were 1 extraordinary tier intermediate grade demon hunter, 1 extraordinary tier intermediate grade demon warlock, 1 extraordinary tier intermediate grade carpenter, 1 extraordinary tier intermediate grade fire elemental archmage, 1 extraordinary tier intermediate grade blacksmith, 1 extraordinary tier intermediate grade water elemental archmage, 1 extraordinary tier intermediate grade chi practitioner. The rest were life professionals and combat professionals below extraordinary tier. Zhou Zhou nodded and asked the officials beside him to bring them to their respective places of work and life. After that, he called Bai Yun, Wu Xian, and the others, gathered all the territory soldiers, and directly entered Mu Gus Ranchland Continent. Ranchland Continent. When Zhou Zhou arrived on this continent, he immediately felt that it was different from before. Not only was the area larger, but there were also more monster ranches and monsters. More importantly, the extraordinary tier energy contained in the air here had also increased by a small level. Zhou Zhou even vaguely felt that the grade of this continent had increased to a certain extent with his super powerful 6 senses. This Ranchland continent is not inferior to my small world. As long as it grows smoothly in the future, Mu Gus Ranchland continent might grow into a universe-level world. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Ranch universe or monster universe, he was really looking forward to it. Zhou Zhou smiled and did not think too much about it. Then, he ordered Mugu to bring his soldiers to the various monster ranches in the Ranchland continent and begin to clean up the monsters in the ranches. Even though there were already more than 360 million monsters in the Ranchland continent, they naturally could not resist Zhou Zhou's 500 million strong army. It was not enough for each soldier to kill a ranch monster. Coupled with the help of a large number of monster shepherds, these 360 million ranch monsters were all dealt with in less than a moment. After that, all the soldiers began to retrieve the loot of the ranch monsters. A moment later, all the ranch monsters were extracted. Under the effect of the titles of King of Loots and Strongest Lord, in terms of the mist cores, he had obtained a total of more than 2,040,000,000 green bronze tier mist cores, more than 1,720,000,000 white silver tier mist cores, more than 1,260,000,000 yellow gold tier mist cores, more than 1,023,000,000 white platinum tier mist cores, more than 1,020,000,000 diamond tier mist cores, more than 630 million extraordinary tier mist cores, and more than 120 million epic tier mist cores. There were also 360 million King of Yellow Gold recruitment books, 360 million King of Yellow Gold class change certificates, 360 million Violent Storm Spirit recruitment books, 360 million Violent Storm Spirit class change certificates, 26,500 proof of Legion fragments, More than 160 million true faith tier scarlet crystals. More than 128 million pious tier scarlet crystals. More than 76 million fanatic tier scarlet crystals. 151 Holy Spirit tier scarlet crystals. 90 million iron-eating bear pet eggs. 180 million Fear Falcon wings and Fear Falcon 3 radar. More than 2.8 billion units of original gold. As for the other unimportant spoils of war, there was no need to elaborate. Zhou Zhou looked at the list of loot from the Monster Ranch and could not help but smile. 360 million Violent Storm Spirit recruitment books. 360,000 trillion King of Yellow Gold recruitment books. There was only one thought in Zhou Zhou's mind as he looked at these loots. The number of soldiers under my command has indeed exceeded 1 billion. Chapter 726 Scarlet Mystic Sword Immortal's Sword Dao Inheritance. Talent, Heavenly Sword Immortal Body. Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction. The upgraded Monster Ranch effect was really not bad. The number of recruitment books alone had nearly doubled. The mist cores obtained from the Monster Ranch today were nearly 20 million legendary tier mist cores. It was a third more than yesterday. As for the other gains, they were about a third more than before. After that, Zhou Zhou did not waste his breath. He took these 720 million soldier-type recruitment books to the Gate of Summoning and spent 100 extraordinary tier mist cores to summon them all at once. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly as he looked at the endless recruits in front of him. Now, he had more than 1.25 billion soldiers under his command. Including the more than 41 million soldiers of the Star Alliance, he had nearly 1.3 billion soldiers under his command. This was almost the entire population of China. However, so many recruits can't go to the battlefield immediately. I have to let them train their soldiers first and increase their strength. Zhou Zhou pondered. Then, he called Wu Xian over. Greetings, Your Majesty. Wu Xian quickly came over and said respectfully. Deputy Commander Wu. Lead 100 million veterans and these 720 million recruits to raise their levels around the Night Empire. I'll get Heras, Vicky, and Feng Luo, the 3 god spirits, to follow you and protect you. Zhou Zhou made arrangements. Yes, Your Majesty. Wu Xian looked at the vast sea of recruits in front of him, smacked his lips, and agreed respectfully. After that, he asked Bai Yun, Qi Xiantian, Guo Zhe Wu, and the other generals to lead the remaining soldiers and the lords of the Star Alliance on the galaxy to continue doing the Night Empire's faction quests. He came to the Lord's shop. Old Zhou, where's the new product? Zhou Zhou knocked on the goods counter. Then, Zhou Qingmin, who had a pair of panda eyes, walked out of the shadow of the shop. Fuck, what's wrong? Zhou Zhou said in surprise. I've been obsessed with reincarnation for the past 2 days. It's just that I don't have any teammates. The party up is filled with system NPCs. It's a little boring to carry out the faction confrontation segment. Zhou Qingmin complained. Then, he looked at Zhou Zhou excitedly. How's the production of the virtual helmet going? He asked expectantly. The factory has been built and is already operational. In 2 days, the first batch of about 10 million virtual reality gaming helmets will be sold for the first time. You'll have teammates to accompany you then. When Zhou Zhou heard this question, he first asked Wunya. After receiving a reply, he told Zhou Qingmin. There are still 2 days, then he'll play 2 standalone games for the next 2 days. Zhou Qingmin said regretfully. The corners of Zhou Zhou's mouth twitched. He was already middle-aged, but he still played games every day. Oh. A subordinate of the Supreme Will? Then it was fine. Commodity goods. Zhou Zhou knocked on the counter again, seeing that the other party was still engrossed in the game world. When Zhou Qingmin heard this, he reluctantly came back to his senses and took out the 3 golden boxes under the counter. "Take a look for yourself," he said casually, then sat down and began to write. Zhou took a casual look and realized that this guy was actually writing a game guide. Zhou felt a little helpless. He looked at the 3 golden boxes in front of him. The first box contained a book. On the cover of the book was the figure of a sword immortal with a cold expression and a divine sword that was as red as blood on his back. "Isn't this from Qi Xiantian? Is it the goods on Qi Xiantian?" Zhou was a little surprised. He looked at it. Inheritance, Scarlet Mystic Sword Immortal's Sword Dao Inheritance, Inheritance Quality, Low-Tier Deity Level Elementary Grade, Inheritance Description, Scarlet Mystic Sword Immortal, Qi Zuanshan's Sword Dao Inheritance. After learning it, you will automatically master all the Sword Dao understandings that the Scarlet Mystic Sword Immortal has currently mastered. Inheritance Type Goods. This is the first time I've seen it. Zhou was a little surprised. He decided to buy it and looked at the next item. It was a purple talent crystal. Talent name, Heavenly Sword Immortal Body, Talent Level, Master God Tier Elementary Grade, Talent Description. As soon as the heavenly sword appears, all swords would bow. You were born to be a leader of the Sword Dao. You are destined to stand at the peak of the Sword Dao. Comprehending the Sword Dao is just the easiest and most interesting thing in the world to you. Most of the divine swords in the endless heavens are willing to respect you. No one in this world can surpass you in terms of comprehension of the Sword Dao. If there is, it can only be the law of the Sword Dao itself. TSK, it's Qi Zuanshan's talent again. Moreover, it just so happens to be the top-grade talent of the Heavenly Sword Immortal Body. Looks like the Lord's shop today is specially provided by Qi Xiantian. Zhou's surprised expression carried a hint of joy. He had been coveting Qi Zuanshan's talent for a long time. Especially when the other party said that he was confident that he could fight a high-tier deity level with his low-tier deity level body, he understood even more how precious this talent and the immortal sword summoning talent were. He actually had a chance to obtain one of them now. This Lord's shop is indeed worthy of being at the mythical tier, unique Lord talent. Almost all the goods provided are top grade. And it seems to have followed my thoughts. It will have a higher chance of providing me with the goods I want if I want something. And if we play games with Zhou Qingmin, it will increase the chances of top-grade goods appearing. Zhou thought. The last product must be the immortal sword summoning talent. It must be the immortal sword summoning. It must be the immortal sword summoning. Let me have an accompanying divine sword too. He came back to his senses and prayed a few times. Then, he looked at the last item. In the end, what he saw was not a purple talent crystal. It was a card. Card name, Super Double Commodity Card, Card Level, Special, Card Effect, the Lord has this card. When shopping in the Lord's shop, you can specify a good that appears in the goods counter of the shop the next day. However, the buyer has to pay double the price to buy this good. Card Description, an exclusive card from the Lord's shop. It can be used to buy specific goods, but you have to pay a higher price. Wasn't it summoned by the Sword Immortal? Zhou was a little disappointed. However, when he looked at this commodity law, he realized that the Super Double Commodity card was not bad. It could also be used to buy the immortal sword summoning, but he would have to pay double the mist cores. And did Zhou lack mist cores? He was not lacking in them at all. Therefore, he immediately decided to buy it too. Old Zhou. How many mist cores do these 3 goods cost? Zhou asked. Scarlet Mystic Sword Immortal's Sword Dao Inheritance is worth 5,000 legendary tier mist cores. The Heavenly Sword Immortal Body is worth 30 million legendary tier mist cores. Super Double Commodity Card is worth 100 legendary tier mist cores. What? Zhou felt that he had heard wrongly. When Zhou Qingmin heard this, he wrote the game guide without stopping and repeated it without looking up. Zhou Zhou heard it clearly this time. There were indeed 30 million legendary tier mist cores. Zhou Zhou was stunned. This was the first time he had heard a price of this level. Chapter 727 I was clearly here first. 30 million legendary tier mist cores. Are you serious? Zhou Zhou asked seriously. The talent of a Master God tier elementary grade can give a life form a chance to reach the Master God tier level. And the Master God tier level is already the top existence in the endless heavens. Your Majesty, don't you think that it's worth it? Zhou Qingmin looked up and said helplessly. Otherwise, I can also say that I only need 300 Master God tier elementary grade divine crystals. He added. Zhou Zhou silently emptied most of his savings and placed them in a large spatial ring for Zhou Qingmin. Zhou Qingmin took it with a smile. When he checked and realized that there were indeed 30,005,100 legendary tier mist cores inside, the smile on his face immediately became even brighter. His Majesty has made a fortune recently. I can't believe you can really take this amount out. Zhou Qingmin smiled so widely that his old face was like a chrysanthemum. Zhou Zhou said nothing. Zhou Zhou did not say anything. That was a total of 30 million legendary tier mist cores. A third of the wealth in a kingdom's treasure vault was only 500 legendary tier mist cores. 30 million legendary tier mist cores was equivalent to a third of the wealth of the 60,000 kingdom treasure vaults. Even though he had already obtained this Master God tier talent, Zhou Zhou was not sure if he had made a profit or a loss. He took a deep breath and did not think too much about it. He first used the super double commodity card and designated the commodity as Qi Zuanshan's immortal sword summoning talent. After hearing Zhou Qingmin agree, he took out the Scarlet Mystic Sword Immortal Sword Dao Inheritance and the Heavenly Sword Immortal Body Talent Crystal and used them on the spot. A moment later, Zhou Zhou woke up. He carefully sensed the changes in his body. He realized that a large number of Sword Dao common sense, secret techniques, and realm-related inheritances had indeed appeared in his mind. Moreover, not only were there a huge number of these inheritances, the quality was also abnormally high. Other than that, this knowledge was clearly systematic. When Zhou Zhou received it, he did not feel that it was complicated at all and accepted it abnormally smoothly. The Myriad Sword Immortal sect is indeed good. He does have a way of teaching his disciple. Zhou Zhou felt the systematic Sword Dao inheritance in his mind and could not help but click his tongue. Then, he stretched out his right hand, and a golden divine sword appeared in his hand. This golden divine sword looked dignified and vast. One side of the sword was engraved with the sun, moon, and stars, and one side had the agriculture husbandry technique. The other side was blank. It was the race's divine artifact, Sword of Xian Yuan. With a thought, he used spatial teleportation to arrive at the combat training room of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise. Then, he summoned a puppet dummy and waved his right hand. A chaotic sword energy shot out of the Sword of Xian Yuan. Then, halfway through, this sword energy suddenly divided into hundreds of millions of tiny invisible sword threads, enveloping the puppet dummy. Bang, 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 bang. In the blink of an eye. This puppet dummy's body was covered in dense sword marks. Moreover, if one could observe the interior of the puppet dummy, they would discover that it was already filled with countless sharp and fine sword marks. One of the supreme realms pursued by sword cultivators, sword chi threads. No wonder sword cultivators can fight above their level. I'm afraid even a high-tier deity-level divine artifact won't be able to withstand the attacks of these billions of sword threads with the powerful attack characteristic of these sword threads. This sword silk can probably directly penetrate the defense of the divine artifact and attack the god spirit's internal life core, divinity. Zhou Zhou clicked his tongue. This was the horror of a peerless sword cultivator. It was useless even if you had a divine artifact. It directly ignored your divine artifact defense, divine power defense, and divine skill defense and directly hit the enemy's life core. Aren't you afraid? Then, a smile appeared on his face. From today onwards, he could also call himself a sword immortal. After that, he walked out of the advanced grade Lord's Paradise and went to the Imperial Ancestral Temple to ask for a good ancestral enhancement for Bai Yun and the others. Then, he took the teleportation array and headed to the Military Industry Alliance headquarters of the Military Industry Lord. Military Industry Alliance headquarters. When Zhou Zhou arrived through the spatial teleportation array, he realized that it was quite lively. A large number of people were gathered here. At a glance, there were at least 10,000 people. Some of them were talking loudly, some stood on both sides of the road and waited excitedly for the founding ceremony to begin. Some of them were wearing formal clothes, as if they were about to do something important. Teams of soldiers were patrolling, so there was no trouble here. Zhou Zhou nodded slightly when he saw this. Even though it was far inferior to his founding ceremony, it looked at least all right. When Zhou Zhou emerged from the spatial teleportation array, he attracted the gazes of almost all the surrounding subjects. Everyone was amazed by this person's appearance. Zhou Zhou's expression was calm, not affected by such a small scene. Soon, a team of soldiers quickly ran over from afar and arrived in front of Zhou Zhou. "Would you be your Majesty of the Blazing Sun?" the captain of the soldiers asked. Zhou Zhou acknowledged. The team of soldiers looked at each other and knelt down without hesitation. "Greetings, Your Majesty. Get up. Bring me to see the Military Industry Lord and the others." Zhou Zhou said. "Yes, Your Majesty." The soldier said respectfully and began to lead the way. A moment later, Zhou Zhou saw the Military Industry Lord and the descendants of the fallen country that had joined forces with him to build a kingdom. "Greetings, Your Majesty." After seeing Zhou Zhou's appearance, the two groups were clearly stunned for a moment. Then, after coming back to their senses, they hurriedly knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Get up. You guys are the protagonists today. I just came over to take a look." Zhou Zhou smiled. He looked at the Military Industry Lord. In reality, the Military Industry Lord was wearing a silver military uniform. He had a square face, sharp eyebrows, and starry eyes. He had a faint beard and looked like a middle-aged handsome man. The descendant of the fallen country beside him was a rather young man. However, he was noble and had an extraordinary aura. One could tell at a glance that he was different from other ordinary people in the crowd. Are you His Majesty the Blazing Sun?" "My name is Aldrich. I've heard of your legend since a long time ago. My king father and some of the seniors that my king father knows have also discussed you. They all say that you're one of the future pillars of our human race. One of the future hopes of our human race." The more Aldrich spoke, the more excited he became. His eyes lit up, as if he had seen his idol. The Military Industry Lord could not help but click his tongue when he saw his performance. At the same time, he felt a little sour. This Prince Aldrich was quite proud when he was with him. He spoke very little and generally appeared to be polite to the beauties he sent him as if he was placing barriers up from 1,000 miles away. He was never like today, becoming like a bootlicker seeing a goddess and a fanatic fan seeing an idol after lying eyes upon His Majesty. "I was clearly here first." Zhou Zhou also saw him. However, he did not panic at all and chatted with the other party calmly. Half an hour later, Zhou Zhou took a photo with the Military Industry Lord before heading to the spatial teleportation array, preparing to go to the Dragon Lady Lord to participate in their founding ceremony. The Military Industry Lord looked at the photo in his hand proudly. Then, he sent it to the World Channel without hesitation and attached a paragraph. And then, the World Channel exploded. Chapter 728 The Establishment of the Four Kingdoms of the Cerulean Planet. Military Industry Kingdom, Military Industry Lord. From today onwards, the Military Industry Kingdom is officially established. Thank you, Your Majesty, for coming. Our Military Industry Kingdom will definitely develop better and better under Your Majesty's guidance. Ha 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 ha, Dragon Lady Lord, look at how smug you are. When will His Majesty come to me? Mystic Heaven Lord, Your Majesty, we're also waiting for you here. Undead Lord, all the life forms and undead in our undead kingdom are also waiting for His Majesty's arrival at the headquarters. Good Lord, top-notch lords are actually all bootlickers. Fuck, His Majesty is actually so handsome. As expected of our Majesty. I'll lick his boots too. Previously, I didn't believe it when I heard that the Military Industry Lord and the other top-notch lords had joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Now, such a thing really happened. Is His Majesty the Blazing Sun going to unify all the human lords on Cerulean Planet? It's good to be unified. Looking at the current situation, other than His Majesty, the Special Lord, the other lords of the Cerulean Planet are nothing in the eyes of the top lords of the myriad races. They were destroyed by a top lord with a casual wave of his hand. If we're still not unified and still want to fight among ourselves, our Cerulean Planet's human lords will die sooner or later. I'm not convinced by the other lords among the human lords of Cerulean Planet, only by the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Me too. Facing the ridicule of the Cerulean Planet Lord on the World Channel, the Military Industry Lord was proud instead of being ashamed. So what if I'm a bootlicker? As a bootlicker, I can at least lick it. You people who are jealous on the World Channel every day can't even lick it even if you want to. He snorted proudly and went to discuss the development of the kingdom with Aldrich. 15 minutes later. On the World Channel. Another group photo appeared. Then, the Dragon Lady Lord sent a message. Dragon Blood Kingdom, Dragon Lady Lord. From today onwards, the Dragon Blood Kingdom is officially established. Thank you for coming, Your Majesty. Under Your Majesty's lead, our Dragon Blood Kingdom will definitely soar into the sky. Everyone will be like dragons. I also hope that everyone on the World Channel will join our Dragon Blood Kingdom in the future. Another 15 minutes later. Mystic Heaven Kingdom, Mystic Heaven Lord. From today onwards, the Mystic Heaven Kingdom is officially established. Under His Majesty's lead, our Mystic Heaven Kingdom will definitely nurture more and more immortal Tao experts in the future and help His Majesty and the Blazing Sun Kingdom dominate the world. Another 15 minutes later. Undead Kingdom, Undead Lord, the Undead Kingdom is officially established from today onwards. Our Undead Kingdom will definitely become stronger and stronger under His Majesty's lead in the future and become the strongest Lord faction in the Undead domain. I welcome all lords who have the ambition to develop the Undead-related domain to join our Undead Kingdom. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun at Military Industry Lord at Dragon Lady Lord at Mystic Heaven Lord at Undead Lord, thank you. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun, I will hold an online auction on kingdom tokens after a while. I will sell no less than 10 kingdom tokens in this auction. I welcome all Cerulean Planet lords with strength and character to participate in this auction. Lords with bad morals, such as the Dark Martial Lord, don't take the initiative to sneak in. If I discover you, I will directly destroy your nest. Military Industry Kingdom, Military Industry Lord, yes, Your Majesty. Mystic Heaven Kingdom, Mystic Heaven Lord, I can help. Dragon Blood Alliance, Dragon Lady Lord, I can help too. Undead Alliance, Undead Lord, I have a way to detect the unholy stuff. Your Majesty, you can leave the screening of lords with bad morals to me. Zhou Zhou, who had already returned to the Blazing Sun Kingdom through the spatial teleportation array, pursed his lips when he saw the Undead Lord's words. You're talking about having a method to detect the unholy in front of a living being with the light sacred dragon bloodline? He had guts. He did not reply to the other party. He went straight to the Night Temple and the Temple Lord's office. Knock, knock, knock. Zhou Zhou knocked lightly on the door. Come in. Bai He's voice sounded. Zhou Zhou pushed the door open and entered. When Bai He saw Zhou Zhou in the office, he was stunned for a moment before a smile appeared on his face. Have a seat. He smiled. Zhou Zhou sat down impolitely. You brat, you actually caused such a huge commotion while I was away. Rob has already told me. However, did you really obtain so many proof of legion through raising monsters? The two of them chatted for a while. Bai He brought up the previous incident. He asked curiously. My territory does indeed have a monster ranch specially used to nurture fog monsters to collect designated loots. The proof of legion is only one of the designated loots we collected. Zhou Zhou said. Monster ranch. When Bai He heard this, his body trembled. Then, he looked at Zhou Zhou with a complicated expression. He was extremely experienced. He had once heard of Monster Ranch, which was specially used to collect designated loots when he was young. It was said that only a few powerful Empire-level Lord factions or even Divine Kingdom-level Lord factions could create such a monster ranch. Moreover, even if they could do it, the price they would have to pay was huge. Finding the designated monster, setting the territory of the monster's survival, researching the growth method of the monster, choosing the time to harvest, how to increase the drop rate of the designated loots. All kinds of conditions were necessary. The Lord faction that could realize Monster Ranch had paid an unknown price. It was also because of this that even though he knew of the existence of the Monster Ranch, he had never let the human race do it. They could not afford it. He did not expect to hear it from the Lord of the Blazing Sun today. Moreover, the other party had done it and the effect was not bad. As expected of one of the publicly acknowledged future hopes of the human race's higher-ups. He sighed inwardly. Do you still have any proof of legion? Bai He asked bluntly. Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it. He took out 400 proof of legion from his king's treasure box and placed them on the table. Looking at the kingdom-level proof of legion that was piled up into a small mountain, even with Bai He with his knowledge and experience, he could not help but be stunned. You really have them. And so many of them. Good God, Bai He clicked his tongue. With so many proof of legions, it was enough for their human territory to have an additional 400 regular armies. This was undoubtedly a huge help to the extremely rare humans in the official army. However, Bai He did not touch these proof of legion immediately. Thousands of years of life let he know that everything had a price secretly marked. There was never anything free in this world. What do you want? Bai He looked at Zhou Zhou. I do have a request. However, I don't have any intention of using these 400 proof of legion to complete what I want. I just heard that the Temple Lord wanted them, and then I purely wanted to give them to our human race. If this is considered a request, then what I'm asking for should be a friendship with our human race, right? Zhou Zhou smiled. The proof of legion was indeed useless to him at the moment. He had indeed just casually taken it out and given it to the other party when he heard that the other party needed it. In any case, his monster ranch could produce so many proof of legion in 2 days. Bai He pondered and nodded. With a wave of his right hand, he put away the 400 proof of legion. What do you want? Bai He asked. The last time I revived Li Xingguang, the Temple Lord said that he owed me a favor. Zhou Zhou asked. That's right. Do you want to use this favor? Bai He asked. Zhou Zhou nodded. I want the corpse of a high-level demon. If possible, I hope it's a high-tier deity-level demon. It would naturally be better if there are higher ones. He told him his request. Chapter 729 Mystic Realm, Green Bronze Mausoleum. Green Bronze Book. Is it urgent? Bai He pondered for a moment and asked seriously. There's no hurry. Sure. Bai he nodded. Leave this to me. In 2 days, they'll give you the corpse of a demon at least at the high-tier deity level. Thank you, Temple Lord. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up and he immediately smiled. You're welcome. Demons can still be seen everywhere in our night temple. Bai he smiled. He was the god of abyssal nights. An existence that had once made a name for itself in the abyss alone. To him, it was not difficult to obtain the corpse of an abyssal demon at least at the high-tier deity level. In addition, you gave us so many proof of legion but I can't give you nothing. So this is for you. Bai he took out a map and a token and handed them to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou took it and realized that there was a location called the Green Bronze Mausoleum marked on the map. As for the token, it was called the Green Bronze Mausoleum token. It was the key to open a special mystic realm. This Green Bronze Mausoleum is a special mystic realm. There are 100,000 fog monsters, the Green Bronze Knights, and a monster general called the Green Bronze General. We killed a few bronze generals and accidentally obtained a green bronze book. The effect of this green bronze book is to increase the quality of soldiers below the kingdom level by 1 grade. Which means basic soldiers can be upgraded to intermediate soldiers with the help of the green bronze book. Intermediate soldiers can be upgraded to advanced soldiers. Advanced soldiers can be upgraded to special soldiers, but special soldiers can't be upgraded to kingdom-level soldiers. But even so, it's quite precious to have the special soldiers. If you're interested, I can represent the higher-ups of the human race and give you this mystic realm permanently. But I have to tell you that after this mystic realm opens once, it will take 10 years to open again. It can't be forcefully restarted halfway, or this mystic realm will self-destruct. How about it? Are you interested? Bai he looked at Zhou Zhou. Yes. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and agreed. He had the king of loots. Perhaps the loots of this mystic realm would change in his hands. Okay. Then he'll leave this green bronze mausoleum to you. You can go there yourself through this map or through our night temple's spatial teleportation array. You'll naturally know the requirements to enter the mystic realm when you arrive. It's not difficult. You'll definitely be able to enter and obtain the things inside. Bai he said. Then you'll go take a look tomorrow. Zhou Zhou nodded. Bai he nodded. After chatting for a while, Zhou Zhou bade farewell and left. After leaving, Zhou Zhou piloted a galaxy and planned to take a look at Wuxia. Outside the territory of the Night Empire. Near a white platinum-tier scarlet territory in the wilderness. More than 800 million soldiers wearing the standard equipment of the Blazing Sun Kingdom were methodically killing the fog monsters gathered nearby. In front of the huge number of soldiers, even if more and more of these fog monsters gathered, they could not stop their slaughter. Some fog monsters that had developed intelligence had already fled into the distance in fear when they saw this scene. Other than that, there were clergymen wearing emerald green divine robes amongst these soldiers. They were the clergymen in the shelter of the goddess of life. They cast divine arts on the injured soldiers to save or even revive them. At this moment, a slender girl holding a phoenix musket and wearing silver knight armor was watching the clergy revive the soldiers on an epic tier dragon blood horse. No matter how many times I see it, it still feels unbelievable. Yu Ling sighed softly. She had personally led the soldiers to help this group of recruits from the Blazing Sun Kingdom train since yesterday. At that time, she was shocked by the number of recruits and the unbelievable methods of these clergy. Especially the resurrection method. In the eyes of the princess of the empire, such methods were legendary. However, according to her understanding over the past 2 days, this resurrection method was actually no different from an ordinary healing technique to the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. She even knew about a general of the Blazing Sun Army who had undergone 16 resurrections and had the strength of a legendary tier. Only then did she know why this group of soldiers from the Blazing Sun Kingdom was so fierce and fearless of death. After all, if the soldiers of their Night Empire could also have such a resurrection method, even the most timid soldiers would probably have the courage to fight the enemy to the death. In the long run, who would be afraid of death? And, there are more recruits today. More than yesterday, and they're not even the same batch of recruits. Thinking of this, Princess Yuling took a deep breath. She naturally understood what this meant. This meant that the number of recruits under the King of the Blazing Sun alone exceeded 1 billion. This number had already exceeded the total military strength of the soldiers from all over the Night Empire. Even though this sounded unbelievable, it was the truth. That King of the Blazing Sun is really an unbelievable person. No wonder so many higher-ups of the human race think that he's one of the hopes of our human race's rise. Princess Yuling thought to herself. Your Highness. At this moment, a knight wearing the standard equipment of the Night Empire galloped over on his horse from afar. Then, he stopped in front of her and said respectfully, Your Highness, the King of the Blazing Sun is here. Take me there. Princess Yuling immediately said. Your Highness, please follow me. The general nodded and ran in a direction with Princess Yuling. Soon, they rushed to a military tent. A handsome young man in the Emperor Dragon robe with the sword of Xian Yuan wrapped around his waist was chatting with Wu Xian. Beside Wu Xian were Vicky and the other god spirits. Long time no see. Princess Yuling listened from afar. After confirming that the other party was not discussing anything important, she took a deep breath and walked over, greeting him with a smile. Your Highness. Thank you, Your Highness, and the soldiers of the Night Empire, for taking care of our soldiers these 2 days. Zhou Zhou said politely. He already knew that this princess had come to help in the past 2 days through Wu Xin's report. I'm ashamed. We did come with the intention of helping. But the soldiers under your command don't seem to need our help. Princess Yuling said. She had learned the saying, I can't care less, that's above my pay grade, from the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom in the past 2 days. She didn't even realize it. She, who had always had a cold personality, actually had a specially intimate attitude when she spoke. Zhou Zhou smiled. How's the situation in the Night Empire now? He asked. With the help of His Majesty's soldiers over the past 2 days, the pressure on our Night Empire has been relieved a lot. However, our situation is still not too good on the battlefield of high-end combatants. Princess Yuling said truthfully. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he suddenly said, I plan to make a trip to the Divine Sword Empire today. Princess, are you willing to go with me? With the galaxy around, it was not difficult for him to cross the spatial teleportation array and go straight to the Divine Sword Empire. Chapter 730 To the Divine Sword Empire, 1, To the Divine Sword Empire. Have you already opened all the spatial teleportation arrays to the Divine Sword Empire? Princess Yuling was stunned for a moment before she became excited. No. But, Zhou Zhou looked at the disappointment on Princess Yuling's face and smiled. Then, he snapped his fingers gently and saw a huge silver spaceship in the form of a miniature galaxy gradually appear in the sky above them. This galaxy was more than 80,000 square kilometers in size. It was comparable to Chuanyu City on the Cerulean planet. It lay across the sky, and the ground was enveloped in a large shadow, as if night had fallen. Princess Yuling looked at the spaceship above her head and even subconsciously held her breath. Moreover, what surprised her the most was not the size of the spaceship, but the faint divine power aura emitted by it. A god spirit tier spaceship of the Machina race, she muttered. The Night Empire she was from did not have much negotiations with the Machina race. They only had some technological products spread by the Machina race civilization. As for the so-called god-tier spaceship of the Machina race, she had only read about it in some ancient books. This was the first time she had seen a spaceship of this level in reality. This is, yours? Princess Yuling looked at Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou nodded casually. Princess Yuling looked confused. At this moment, she felt that she, a princess from an empire-level lord faction, was like a country bumpkin. The new king in front of her, who had only established his kingdom a few days ago, was actually a member of a high-level race civilization that came from a lord faction. She shook her head to shake away this thought that she felt was a little ridiculous. With the speed of the galaxy, we should be able to reach the Divine Sword Empire in half an hour. At this moment, Zhou Zhou's voice sounded in Princess Yuling's ear. The Night Empire was about 6.25 billion kilometers from the Divine Sword Empire. Normally speaking, it would take an hour and a half with the speed of the galaxy. However, the spatial teleportation array that Zhou Zhou had taken down in the past 2 days was naturally not for nothing. He could first use the spatial teleportation array to arrive at the closest spatial teleportation array to the Divine Sword Empire before heading to it. This way, he would only need about half an hour to reach the Divine Sword Empire. Sure, then let's go now, Princess Yuling said excitedly. She looked at the magnificent galaxy above her head, her eyes filled with curiosity. She had never taken a God Spirit Tier Machina race spaceship before. Your Highness. The general behind her hesitated and wanted to speak. The King of the Blazing Sun is trustworthy. If my King Father and Queen Mother ask me where I'm going, tell them the truth. Princess Yuling turned to look at the general and said coldly. Yes, Your Highness. The general did not dare to refute and lowered his head respectfully. Zhou Zhou smiled when he saw this. Then, Princess Yuling and him flew into the galaxy. Inside the galaxy. In a wide hall. Wow, Princess Yuling looked at the mechanical and technological settings around her and exclaimed softly. Her eyes were sparkling and very resplendent. At this moment, she seemed to have put down the airs of an empire's princess and become a little girl who had seen something new. This place is so big. Can I take a look around here? She looked at Zhou Zhou. Princess, please feel free. Zhou Zhou said casually. Your Blazing Sun Kingdom has a very high degree of diplomatic relations with our Night Empire. We don't have to be so distant. Just call me Yuling or Alina. How about I call you Zhou Zhou? Princess Yuling smiled. Of course. Zhou Zhou said casually. Why are your words so genteel? Why are you like my chi practitioner King Father? Princess Yuling complained. Am indeed a chi practitioner. Your Majesty too. She said in surprise as Zhou Zhou asked when yet to activate and head to the spatial teleportation array. That's right. The chi practitioner class can be considered a top class of our human race. Normally, humans with good background and chi refinement aptitude will basically change their profession to chi practitioners as long as they have channels for chi practitioners. I'm also a chi practitioner. Yuling smiled. Zhou Zhou nodded. Well, chi practitioners had a bright future. Which human was unwilling to become a chi practitioner? Moreover, the Divine Sword Empire we're going to this time is the immortal Dao Kingdom of a chi practitioner. The king of the Divine Sword Empire is a Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm Sword Immortal. As for the ancestor of the Divine Sword Empire, it's said that he's a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm with great divine power. Princess Yuling said. Zhou Zhou nodded. He was not surprised. The Night Empire even had a true god-tier knight like Bai He. It was quite normal for the Divine Sword Empire to have Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm experts of the same level. He even guessed that perhaps each of the 5 empires of the human race had a true god-tier existence behind them. However, if that was the case, why didn't they build a divine kingdom? Zhou Zhou was puzzled. He did not have a specific method to build a divine kingdom in his mind. Therefore, he did not know the exact reason. Perhaps he would need to increase his strength to a higher level before his bloodline inheritance could unlock this bloodline knowledge. What's this? At this moment, Princess Yuling pointed at a black helmet and said. Virtual reality game helmet. There are many virtual games inside. Yu Ling, if you're interested, you can play to pass the time first. Well, only arrive at the Divine Sword Empire in about half an hour. Yu Ling, if you still want to play after this, I can give you 10,000 virtual game helmets. Zhou Zhou said. These virtual game helmets were the first batch of gaming helmets created by Wen Ya's factory. They had yet to be released, so it was naturally fine to give some to this princess. Virtual reality game helmet? Is it the very popular toy in the books for the mechanical races civilization? I heard that many life forms of high-level races and civilizations like the virtual games made by the Machina race very much. Princess Yu Ling curiously picked up the virtual helmet curiously and looked at it. Right. Zhou Zhou nodded. Princess Yu Ling played with the virtual helmet curiously for a while before putting it down reluctantly. She looked at Zhou Zhou. Her expression suddenly became serious. Your Excellency, King of the Blazing Sun. I want to buy one of such a galaxy from you on behalf of the representative of the Night Empire. I wonder if that's possible. Don't worry about the price. We won't mistreat you. She said. Zhou Zhou pondered for a few seconds before shaking his head. My apologies, Your Highness. Our Blazing Sun Kingdom can't make much of the galaxy at the moment. Therefore, we can't sell a god spirit level spaceship like the galaxy to the outside world for the time being. During this period of time, when Ye had used up all the god-tier materials in Zhou Zhou's hands to create another 2 galaxy, allowing him to have 12 galaxy under his command. But this was already the limit. Without more corresponding god-tier materials, even when Ye could not create more galaxies. It was difficult for a clever woman to cook without rice after all. Chapter 731 To the Divine Sword Empire, 2, when Princess Yu Ling heard this, regret and disappointment appeared in her eyes. But, if Your Highness can provide some god-tier materials to make the galaxy, it's not like our Blazing Sun Kingdom can't make 1 or 2 galaxy for the Night Empire. Zhou Zhou smiled. Really? Can you show me the god-tier materials that your country needs? Zhou Zhou nodded and asked Wen Ye to send him the corresponding information. Soon, a personal terminal was sent over by a spaceship robot and handed to Yu Ling. After familiarizing herself with the operation of her personal terminal, she looked at the god-tier materials needed to build galaxy. After watching for a while, Yu Ling frowned slightly. Then, she looked up at Zhou Zhou. I need to go back and discuss this with King Father. She said seriously. Of course. Zhou Zhou smiled. The god-tier materials that Yu Ling had seen had already been doubled by Wen Ye under his secret instructions. Which meant, if Wen Ye really followed the instructions and sent over all the god-tier materials needed to build the galaxy spaceships, Wen Ye could use these god-tier materials to build 2 more galaxy spaceships. Other than that, he also had to pay the manufacturing fee of 100 low-tier deity-level intermediate-grade divine crystals. However, Zhou Zhou did not feel burdened by this. This was how technology monopolies worked. Nothing was for free. Friendship was friendship, and business was business. He could still distinguish such a small matter. Moreover, he would have taken advantage of the situation at this time if not for the fact that they were both humans. If it were other people of foreign races, he would have given the estimate of 5 galaxy spaceships materials to build 2 galaxy spaceships. He would also have increased the manufacturing cost significantly. In addition, he felt that Yu Ling already felt that the requirements for this god-tier material were a little too much. However, she seemed to have seen through it and did not say anything. In Zhou Zhou's eyes, this was exactly what smart people did. After a while, Zhou Zhou and company used the spatial teleportation array and arrived at a legendary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array where Bai Yun and company were. Then, Zhou Zhou met Bai Yun and company. Greetings, Your Majesty. Bai Yun and the other generals and lords of the Star Alliance said respectfully. "How's it going?" Zhou Zhou asked. "We just captured 2 legendary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays, 3 epic tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays, and 3 extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays. Currently, all the extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays have been captured by us. On the way to the Divine Sword Empire, there are only 6 legendary tier and 11 epic tier advanced teleportation arrays left. We should be able to occupy all of them before tonight." Zhou Zhou could not help but ponder. Before he came, he had wanted to bring Bai Yun and the others to the Divine Sword Empire. Now that he heard what the other party said, he suddenly wanted the other party to occupy all the spatial teleportation arrays first. Even if he and Yu Ling went to the Divine Sword Empire in advance and told the Night Empire that they needed the support of the Divine Sword Empire, the other party would probably need him to open all the spatial teleportation arrays first so that they could teleport troops to support each other. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou decided not to bring Bai Yun along so that they did not have to waste time detouring. He had the Galaxy spaceship in his hands and a high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade puppet, the Pillar of the Empire. On this trip to the Divine Sword Empire, even if he encountered any enemies along the way, it would not be a problem for him to fight or escape. It was fine if he did not bring Bai Yun and the rest along. "Sure. Continue to occupy the remaining spatial teleportation arrays. When you reach the Divine Sword Empire, inform me through the Blood Bat avatar. I'll go to the Divine Sword Empire in advance to greet them." Zhou Zhou said. "Yes, Your Majesty." Bai Yun was stunned for a moment before replying respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded and flew back to the galaxy with Yu Ling. "If I didn't know that your kingdom was newly built, I find it hard to imagine that you are a beginner kingdom that has just been established a few days ago." Yu Ling sighed. She saw the 3 god spirits Qi Xiantian, Wuxia, and Zhe Wu other than Bai Yun just now. What surprised her was she could actually feel the threat of a mid-tier deity level or even higher from these 3 god spirits. It did not give her the feeling of a lesser god spirit at all. She naturally knew what this meant. This represented the 3 god spirits. Other than the Snow Wolf mid-tier deity-level god spirit, the other sword cultivator and the low-tier deity-level god spirit who used the axe both had combat power comparable to a mid-tier deity-level god spirit or even higher. Yu Ling was extremely talented in perception. Therefore, she did not suspect that her perception was wrong. Then, she thought of the god spirits that Wu Xian had seen previously. There was only one thought in Yu Ling's mind. The king of the Blazing Sun's beginner kingdom was a little ridiculous. On the other side, after hearing Yu Ling's words, Zhou Zhou smiled and said nothing. In the time that followed, the two of them chatted on the spaceship while waiting to reach the Divine Sword Empire. The atmosphere was quite friendly. "By the way, what river is the galaxy? Is it the river of your Blazing Sun kingdom?" Yu Ling asked curiously. "The galaxy is my hometown," Zhou Zhou said. Yu Ling immediately understood. The hometown here should refer to the hometown of the human race on the cerulean planet behind Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou was also thinking about Galaxy's name. He had asked Wenya privately about the origins of the name Galaxy. In the end, Wenya said, "Among the many spaceship models of the Machina race, there was no spaceship model named Milky Way. And most importantly, the galaxy name on the galaxy was written in Chinese on Earth. The galaxy was personally created by the Master God Tier. And the Master God Tier wrote Galaxy's name in Chinese. I'm afraid that in the eyes of that Master God Tier, my identity as a transmigrator can be seen at a glance by he. It's not a secret at all." Zhou Zhou's mind was wandering. Perhaps transmigrators in this world were not rare species at all. Perhaps there was another one somewhere, or even many transmigrators who were working hard to increase their strength and power. To those high and mighty Master God Tier, even though transmigrators were a little special, they were probably just so. He shook his head inwardly and stopped thinking about it. 20 minutes later. We're already approaching the territory of the Divine Sword Empire. When Ya's voice rang in Zhou and Linger's ears. Activating virtual outdoor mode. Zhou said. The next second, the bulkhead around Zhou and Yuling suddenly became transparent, revealing the scene outside. The two of them only took a glance before Zhou frowned, and Yuling's expression turned ugly. On the ground, a vast number of fog monsters covered the ground. They were like waves as they continuously attacked a city wall that was nearly 10,000 meters tall. They were like tempestuous waves on the sea, vowing to break the city wall that was blocking them. Inside the city wall was a huge military fortress stained with blood. Groups of soldiers continuously transported supplies to the city wall. Sword cultivators in all kinds of clothes were either riding flying swords to defend the city wall or rushing out of the protection of the city wall. They rode the vast sword Qi and fought a bloody battle with the fog monster. Chapter 732 Strike. In the sky were a large number of flying fog monsters that constantly flew towards the city wall, wanting to fly over the city wall to kill the human soldiers and subjects inside. However, just as they reached the sky above the city wall, they collided with a transparent membrane that covered the entire military fortress. Streaks of sword Qi criss-crossed on the transparent membrane, forming an inseparable network of sword Qi that blocked the flying fog monsters. A large number of sword cultivators would rush out and repair the sword Qi network while fighting these fog monsters. Every second, a large number of fog monsters and human sword cultivators died on the battlefield. The scene was very tragic. There are about 50 million fog monsters. Zhou glanced at the monster data displayed by Wuxia and knew the approximate number of these fog monsters. This is the Diamond Tier regional territory located in the border area of the Divine Sword Empire, 9 Net City. There are about 35 such military fortresses in the Divine Sword Empire. Just a military fortress was attacked by so many fog monsters. The current situation of the Divine Sword Empire, Yuling bit her lip, her face pale. She had come here on the galaxy to ask the Divine Sword Empire to help their Night Empire tide over the crisis. From the looks of it, the situation of the Divine Sword Empire seemed to be even worse than their Night Empire. She had a faint premonition that the journey to seek help would not be as smooth as she had imagined. Perhaps the Divine Sword Empire actually needed their help. At this moment, Zhou and Yuling suddenly realized that the situation below seemed to have changed. 9 Net City. The southeast of the 10 Directions Heavenly Net Sword Formation has been damaged. Formation Repair Team Number 211 will be covered by Elite Swordsman Team Number 1156. Heavenly Cloud Cannon Number 566 is overheating. Assistant Gunner, come over and cast a spell to cool down. My flying sword is broken. Give me another flying sword. The second front lacks demon-subduing talismans. Hurry up and send a batch of reinforcements over. Someone save my brother. The sounds of soldiers fighting, weapons clashing, spells colliding, city walls bombarding, and war machines operating resounded inside and outside the city walls. On the tallest city wall, a middle-aged general in silver armor looked at the battlefield solemnly. His name was Sun Wuxia. He was the city lord of 9 Net City and the strongest person in 9 Net City. 2 more days. We have to transfer all the remaining subjects of 9 Net City to the inland city within these 2 days. This way, we can fight in peace, or die. These bastards from the Qilin Dragon Scarlet Empire. If these guys hadn't sealed the surrounding space, we wouldn't have been so passive and couldn't even fight happily. When he thought of this, his expression became gloomy. When the Qilin Dragon Scarlet Army attacked their 9 Net City, they specially used some kind of spatial sealing device to seal off all the space around 9 Net City, causing the subjects who instinctively teleported through the spatial teleportation array to be unable to move. Their soldiers could not leave this place, and the reinforcements from the outside world could not come to their 9-net city. Their 9-net city had already become an isolated island. Under such circumstances, the other party could attack without any scruples. However, they did not dare to fight back in full force because they had to be wary of the subjects in the city. They could only rely on the array formation to defend. As the saying went, one would lose if one defended for a long time. Sun Wuxia knew that this couldn't go on. However, he really had no other choice. At this moment, rumble. A huge explosion occurred in the sky. Sun Wuxia suddenly looked up and was shocked by the scene he saw. In the sky, the 10 directions heavenly net sword formation, which was responsible for blocking the flying fog monsters, had a huge hole of more than 100 meters. A large number of fog monsters roared and swarmed towards the huge hole. A small number of fog monsters had already rushed into the array and started fighting with the sword cultivators in the city. Damn it! Sun Wuxia didn't have time to think about why the 10 directions heavenly net sword formation, which had never had any problems, was giving problems. His body suddenly erupted with the pressure of a low-tier deity-level god spirit, and then he shot towards the 10 directions heavenly net formation. But just as he was flying halfway, a scarlet god spirit with the head of a black qilin and the body of a giant western dragon, exuding a mid-tier deity-level aura, suddenly appeared in front of him. You must be the guardian general of 9-net city, Sun Wuxia. You have already shown your outstanding talent to be able to resist until now. Now, 9-net city is about to be breached. Give up resisting. I can make the decision to transform a top-grade scarlet divine body for a talent like you. How about that? His voice rumbled as he looked at Sun Wuxia in admiration. In the Divine Sword Empire, there are only sword cultivators who die standing. There are no traders who live on their knees. Die. Sun Wuxia's eyes were bloodshot. He summoned his life-bound flying sword and slashed at his opponent. Humph. I'm giving you face, but you don't want it. The qilin dragon stretched out its black dragon claws and grabbed the flying sword that Sun Wuxia had slashed at him with all his might. Then, he opened his mouth and bit at Sun Wuxia. At the same time, he manifested a huge qilin dragon head that looked like a heavenly phenomenon and bit at him. My life is over. Sun Wuxia knew that he wouldn't be able to block or escape from this gigantic qilin dragon Dharma Laksana. The only regret in his heart was that he did not manage to relocate the remaining subjects in 9-net city. 9-net city would probably be breached soon once he died. At that time, the remaining 9-net city subjects would probably die at the hands of these fog monsters. He was filled with self-blame. But at this moment, a figure in the Emperor Dragon robe suddenly appeared in front of him. He held the golden divine sword in his hand and waved it. Thousands of golden sword chi filled with spirituality shot out from the golden sword. In the blink of an eye, it covered an area of more than 10 square kilometers, covering this space like a sword domain. Then, Zhou willed and thousands of golden sword chi instantly formed a huge golden sword that was more than 10,000 meters long. It was the sword Dao phenomenon formed by the myriad sword immortal formation. Go! He pointed at the qilin dragon Dharma Laksana and saw the golden sword suddenly change direction and slash at it. Rumble! The two collided, resulting in a shocking explosion. Before the tens of thousands of fog monsters nearby could react, they were affected by the explosion. In the blink of an eye, not even powder was left. The swordsmen nearby were not injured, under Zhou's protection. They were just in a sorry state. Sword Chi Thread Realm. Sun Wuxia's eyes lit up when he saw this. He looked at Zhou with a strange gaze. Only such a supreme realm of the sword Dao could control such a terrifying power so easily without injuring the sword cultivators on his side. Then, Sun Wuxia and the Scarlet God Spirit of the Qilin Dragon race seemed to have discovered something on Zhou Zhou, and their eyes widened. Epic tier. An epic tier human can actually withstand my Qilin Dragon's bite. The Qilin Dragon race's Scarlet God Spirit had an incredulous expression. Then, he looked at Zhou Zhou, his expression gradually turning ruthless and resolute. Today, I must kill you even if we can't take down Nine Net City. Otherwise, you will definitely become a huge threat to my master in the future. He said in a low voice. Zhou Zhou acted as if he didn't hear what he said. He took out the pillar of the Empire puppet and materialized it to protect himself. Kill him. Zhou Zhou said coldly. Yes. The pillar of the Empire, Gerard, looked at the dazed Qilin Dragon God Spirit and grinned hideously. Then, he charged forward with the space-splitting blade in hand. Chapter 733 Insight Defection. Zhou Zhou turned to look at Sun Wuxia when he saw Gerard fighting with the other party. Sun Wuxia also looked at him with burning eyes. Are you reinforcements sent by His Majesty? He asked expectantly. No, I'm from the Blazing Sun Kingdom. The Night Empire invited me over. I have something to discuss with your country on this trip. Zhou Zhou shook his head. The Blazing Sun Kingdom, when Sun Wuxia heard that they were not reinforcements, he was a little disappointed at first. Then, when he heard the words, Blazing Sun Kingdom, his eyes revealed a confused expression. Why does this name sound so familiar? Wait. You're that King of the Blazing Sun. King of the Blazing Sun, the light of hope of the human race who obtained the title of strongest lord of all races on the battlefield of the lords of all races. He suddenly widened his eyes and looked at Zhou Zhou. The corners of Zhou Zhou's mouth twitched. The title of strongest lord of all races is real, but what is this about the light of hope of the human race? He realized that there were more and more nicknames given to him recently. I can't take on such a heavy responsibility as the light of hope for the human race. However, I'm indeed the one who obtained the title of strongest lord of all races. Zhou Zhou said. As soon as he finished speaking, he realized that Sun Wuxia was looking at him like he was looking at a giant panda. Then, he suddenly thought of something and his expression suddenly became anxious. Why are you here? Leave quickly. If those Scarlet Empire know that you're here, they'll definitely kill you at all costs. I was entrusted by someone, so I have to fulfill my mission. Zhou Zhou was not flustered. He smiled and said, and at present, as long as you and I don't expose my identity, very few people will know that I came here. Besides, I'm a lord of all races. My territory is clearly on the high continent. The supreme agreement aside, I have nowhere to run unless I give up my foundation if they really want to destroy me. Sun Wuxia fell silent. It seemed to make sense. As a lord of all races, where could he run to? I won't reveal your identity. Sun Wuxia raised his head and looked at Zhou Zhou seriously. Zhou Zhou nodded. He looked in Gerard's direction. At this moment, Gerard was relying on his high-tier deity-level intermediate-grade strength to suppress the mid-tier deity-level elementary-grade god spirit. Sun Wuxia also saw this scene. He heaved a sigh of relief and was not as nervous as before. Then, he recalled his life-bound flying sword and charged towards the place where the 10 directions heavenly net sword formation had been broken. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he charged forward with the sword of Xian Yuan in hand. The two of them quickly rushed to the place where the array had been broken through. Then, they joined forces to kill all the fog monsters that had rushed into the 10 directions heavenly net sword formation. Then, they protected the array repair team and repaired all the damaged parts of the array before stopping. When the Qilin dragons, who were fighting Gerard in the distance, saw this scene, they were so angry that they wanted to vomit blood. He had deliberately disguised himself as a normal fog monster and approached the 10 directions heavenly net sword formation. It was not easy for he to find a gap in the defense. Only then did he suddenly attack and break open a gap. Unexpectedly, it was repaired in the blink of an eye. He wanted to stop him. However, this high-tier deity-level scarlet god spirit in front of him had been constantly dealing he fatal blows. This made he unable to escape at all. He didn't even dare to be distracted, afraid that if he was distracted, he would die here. Aren't you afraid that my lord will punish you for helping the supreme will? The scarlet god spirit of the Qilin dragon race waited for Gerard to shout. As a puppet creature, Gerard could not be bothered to speak at all. The space-splitting blade slashed down continuously, making him deeply feel what a life-and-death crisis was. Soon, despair appeared on the face of the Qilin dragon race's scarlet god spirit. He was only a mid-tier deity level. Even if he was talented, it was not enough for him to cross the gap between him and a high-tier deity level. He could feel it. He would die the moment the divine power in his body was exhausted. A sudden regret flooded over him for coming over to interfere in this matter. On the battlefield. Thank you for your help. Sun Wuxia looked at the handsome man in front of him with shining eyes. Even though this person was only at the epic tier advanced grade, his true combat strength far exceeded his. As expected of a man who repelled a full-strength attack from a mid-tier deity-level scarlet god spirit with a single strike. Zhou waved his hand, indicating that he did not have to care. At this moment, he was also very satisfied with his current combat strength. He could have killed low-tier deity-level enemies at the epic tier with the chaos human bloodline and the power of his divine artifacts. If his bloodline and divine artifact gave him the advantage of having enough force, then the sword Dao inheritance he obtained this morning from Qi Xiantian suddenly gave him an extremely high advantage in terms of skills. Force and skill combined. This allowed his true combat strength to break through again. He could fight enemies at the mid-tier deity level when he was at the epic tier. Such a glorious battle record. Even a prodigy like Qi Xiantian could not compare. Qi Xiantian had only used his epic tier advanced grade strength to kill low-tier deity level elementary grade enemies back then after all. While he had killed low-tier deity level elementary grade enemies when he was below the epic tier. Now that he had attained epic tier advanced grade, he could even face a mid-tier deity level scarlet god spirit without being at a disadvantage. When I reach the legendary tier and can begin to use the sword of new dimension creation, I should be able to kill mid-tier deity level enemies. Moreover, I should have a certain level of ability to protect myself against high-tier deity level enemies. Zhou thought to himself. At that time, as long as a true god tier did not appear, he was basically not afraid of any enemies and should be able to speed up his development. He did not have to be too restricted like before. At this moment, the war was still on. Sun Wuxia did not say anything else. He threw himself into the battlefield again and killed the powerful scarlet monsters to help the sword cultivators and soldiers ease the pressure of the battle. Zhou flew into the sky and raised his right hand. Then, he willed. Extraordinary tier Lord Talent, Insight Defection, activate. The next second, an invisible fluctuation instantly covered the more than 50 million scarlet fog monsters. A text notification appeared. Prompt, you have activated your Lord exclusive talent, Insight Defection. Insight Defection has taken effect. Lord Talent Notification, a total of 5,125,745 black iron tier fog monsters, 4,351,571 green bronze tier fog monsters, 2,139,965 white silver tier fog monsters, 1,021,571 yellow gold tier fog monsters, 516,652 white platinum tier fog monsters, 125,511 diamond tier fog monsters, 37,756 extraordinary tier fog monsters, 3,120 epic tier fog monsters, 52 legendary tier fog monsters have betrayed their lord's faction and become your loyal subordinates. Zhou Zhou nodded. Even though he had only in sight defection captured 13,321,943 fog monsters, it was not as many as the 27 million fog monsters he had captured yesterday. It was already quite good. Chapter 734 Sword Emperor Fuyo, Lu Yen. Patriarch Lu. I still have one chance at in-sight defection chance, perhaps I can use it on the fog monster army around the Divine Sword Empire. Zhou Zhou thought. Now that there were so many fog monsters besieging the Holy Sword Empire, it would be a waste of resources not to use them for in-sight defection. He did not think too much about it. He summoned the galaxy and gathered all the fog monsters that he had in-sight defection on. Then, before the fog monsters could react, he put them all into the galaxy. At this moment, the remaining fog monsters had first lost the deterrence of the Qilin dragon race's scarlet god spirit, and now, they had lost 1/5 of their troops. At this moment, their threat to Nine Net City immediately decreased greatly, and they had even begun to be unable to suppress the attacks of the soldiers of Nine Net City. Sun Wuxia seized the opportunity and immediately called for the soldiers of Nine Net City to counterattack the Scarlet Army. As for him, he rushed directly to the place where the Crimson God Spirit of the Qilin Dragon race was fighting and dealt with the Scarlet God Spirit with Gerard. Under the situation where the two God Spirits were dealing with the Scarlet God Spirit of the Qilin Dragon race together, he, who was already in a precarious situation, could no longer resist. Not long after, his head was cut off by Gerard, who reacted extremely quickly. With the death of the Qilin Dragon God Spirit, the morale of the remaining Scarlet Legion soldiers plummeted. Less than an hour later, the remaining Scarlet Legion soldiers either died or fled. The victory completely belonged to Nine Net City. Sun Wuxia and the other soldiers looked at the battlefield that had returned to calmness. Only the blood river and corpses were left. They were in a daze. We, really won? A general with a broken arm said in disbelief. Yes, not only did we win, we also defeated the attacking Scarlet Legion. In a short period of time. There shouldn't be any enemies of the same level coming. Our Nine Net City is safe. We protected this territory for His Majesty and protected the subjects behind us. A smile appeared on Sun Wuxia's face. When the generals heard this, they laughed excitedly. However, when they saw the corpses of the human soldiers and sword cultivators on the battlefield, their laughter gradually stopped and finally fell silent. Clean up the battlefield, collect the remains of the martyrs, and do the post-war appeasement work. After a long silence, Sun Wuxia gave out orders one after another. Yes, General. After some people heard the order, they went to work. After he had arranged everything, he came in front of Zhou Zhou and suddenly wanted to kneel on one knee. However, Zhou Zhou reacted quickly and stopped him. If you hadn't saved us, all the soldiers and subjects of Nine Net City would have died here. In the future, if you need anything at all, you can come and ask this old son for help. I, Sun Wuxia, swear to my life-bound flying sword that I will definitely repay your kindness. Sun Wuxia insisted on kneeling. However, Zhou Zhou was also very insistent. He did not want this hero to kneel down to him. We're both humans and don't have any aggro. Isn't it normal for us to support each other? If you really want to repay me, just pull me along if I'm in trouble in the future. Zhou Zhou said. He did not think that he was a victorious general, nor did he think that he would never be defeated. Hence, he meant what he said. Okay. Sun Wuxia looked at Zhou Zhou's serious expression and finally nodded heavily. At this moment, a figure ran over from not far away. It was Princess Yuling. She held a sword in her hand and her body was stained with blood. Her face was a little pale, but she looked quite excited. Soon, she arrived in front of Zhou Zhou. As expected of you. You actually saved 9 Net City the moment you attacked. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Zhou Zhou. Just doing what I can. Zhou Zhou said. And this is? Sun Wuxia looked at Yu Ling, the Princess of the Night Empire. General Sun, you can call me Princess Yu Ling or Princess Alina. So it's the Princess of the Night Empire. Sun Wuxia looked at Princess Yu Ling and his expression instantly became friendly and gentle. The 5 empires of the human race were on the same side and had a rather good relationship. In fact, the rulers of the 5 empires were sworn brothers. Therefore, Sun Wuxia had a very good impression of Princess Yu Ling. Are you hurt? Zhou Zhou looked at Yu Ling and asked. When he came down from the galaxy, Yu Ling also came down. However, he had directly come to save Sun Wuxia. Yu Ling knew that she could not play a role on the God Spirit level battlefield and might even become a burden. Therefore, she did not come over together. Instead, she flew directly to the city wall and fought the fog monster with the soldiers and sword cultivators on the city wall. They're just some little monsters that haven't reached the God Spirit level. They're not a threat to me. Yu Ling raised her head proudly. It was just that her face was covered with ashes. Zhou Zhou silently handed her a mirror, allowing her to see herself in the mirror. When Yu Ling saw this, her face immediately turned red. Then, she hurriedly used a cleaning spell to clean herself up. When Zhou Zhou and Sun Wuxia saw this, they could not help but smile. Princess Yu Ling and I are here on behalf of the Night Empire to seek an audience with His Majesty. I wonder if you can introduce us. Zhou Zhou turned around and told Sun Wuxia his business. Of course. Sun Wuxia agreed without hesitation. The spatial teleportation array can be activated again after we remove the spatial seal around here. I'll send someone to take you to Fuyo Imperial Capital. As for me, I still need to stay here and guard the place. I want to accompany you guys. Sun Wuxia said. Zhou Zhou and Yu Ling nodded. A moment later. A soldier came over to inform the 3 of them that they had found the enemy treasure that sealed the space. Now that the spatial seal had been lifted, the spatial teleportation array could be used normally. When Sun Wuxia heard this, he found a general who was familiar with the Fuyo Imperial Capital and asked him to bring Zhou Zhou and Yu Ling to the spatial teleportation array to meet His Majesty. After bidding farewell to Yu Ling, Zhou Zhou followed the general into the spatial teleportation array and disappeared. Fuyo Imperial Capital. When Zhou Zhou arrived, the first thing he saw was a statue. The statue was 82,000 feet tall and looked like a handsome young man. He was dressed in Daoist robes and had a Huayang scarf on his head. He carried a horsetail whisk in his arms and carried a sword on his back. Even though he had a smile on his face, his eyes were filled with sharp sword chi. That's the founding sword immortal of the Divine Sword Empire, Fuyo Sword Emperor Lu Yen. He's also the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm ancestor behind the Divine Sword Empire. Yu Ling looked at the statue and explained to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou nodded and was stunned. Lu Yen. Wait. Fuyo. Lu Yen. Sword Immortal. Does this old ancestor have another name, Lu Dongbin? Zhou Zhou asked softly. That's right. So you know about it too. It's said that when Patriarch Lu went out to cultivate, he once cultivated in a simple cave. He claimed to be a guest in the cave, so he got the title of Lu Dongbin. This Almighty has many myths and legends that have spread throughout the myriad worlds. If you want to understand them, I can tell you. Yu Ling said confidently. It seemed like he admired Patriarch Lu very much. Zhou Zhou was a little confused. This feeling of the myths and legends of Earth suddenly appearing in front of him made him feel that it was unrealistic. It took him a long time to come back to his senses. It turned out that the legends of Patriarch Lu had already spread throughout the myriad worlds. It seemed that the Earth and Cerulean planet before I transmigrated were the 2 worlds affected. Yes, since there were chi practitioners and the immortal world in this world, then what was so strange about the appearance of Patriarch Lu? Perhaps he would encounter Neza, Sun Wukong, or even existences at the Three Pure Ones level in the future. Zhou Zhou thought. Following that, the two of them arrived at the Fuyou Imperial Capital's Imperial Palace under the lead of the general who led the way. After passing the message, the two of them successfully met the Emperor of the Divine Sword Empire. Chapter 735 Morning Assembly. The Emperor of the Holy Sword Empire was a white-haired young man in a white imperial robe. He had a handsome face, jade-like skin, and bright eyes. He sat on the throne like a divine sword. A faint high-tier deity-level pressure emanated from him. The surrounding civil and military officials lowered their heads respectfully. There was no movement in the hall. Zhou Zhou / Yuling greets your majesty. Zhou Zhou and Yuling said respectfully. Zhou Zhou clicked his tongue as he did not expect the Emperor of the Divine Sword Empire to be a top-notch high-tier deity-level expert. Rise. Emperor Lu Zhen said. His voice was steady and powerful. The two of them stood up when they heard this. Lu Zhen looked at the two of them. His gaze lingered on Zhou Zhou for a while before looking at Yuling, niece Yuling. Long time no see. How's your king father? He suddenly smiled. King father has been doing very well recently. It's just that he often talks about you every day. He says that he's been plagued by national affairs in recent years and hasn't competed with you in a long time. Yuling smiled. Lu Zhen laughed out loud and said with a sigh, it's been 132 years since I last competed with Brother Ji. I must carry my sword and meet Brother Ji after the calamity in front of me passes. King Father will definitely be very happy to hear this. Yuling nodded and smiled. Lu Zhen nodded and suddenly commented seriously. When I divined this morning, I already knew why you were here. Don't worry, the Night Empire is in trouble. As a friend of the same race, how can our Divine Sword Empire not lend a helping hand? Lu Zhen looked at Zhou Zhou. I will send troops to support the Night Empire after nephew connects all the spatial teleportation arrays between the two countries. He said solemnly. My subordinates should be able to open the teleportation array between the two countries tonight. Zhou Zhou said. Then I'll personally bring people to the Night Empire tomorrow. Lu Zhen said without hesitation. Zhou Zhou and Yuling looked at each other in confusion. The two of them felt that the current situation of the Divine Sword Empire did not seem to be very good. Why did His Majesty agree so readily? Could they have guessed wrongly? Could it be that the Divine Sword Empire could handle the fog monster army they were facing with ease? At this moment. Your Majesty, you can't. At this moment, an old official in a black robe stepped forward. Our Divine Sword Empire is currently surrounded by 6 Scarlet Empires. There are more than 3 billion Scarlet monsters protecting our empire. We really don't have the energy to support other countries now. The old minister persuaded earnestly. Then, he turned to look at Yuling and Zhou Zhou. Princess Yuling, King of the Blazing Sun, I'm really sorry. Under the current circumstances, our Divine Sword Empire really doesn't have the strength to send troops to help you. When the other ministers heard that someone was the first to speak, they also stepped forward to persuade Lu Zhen to retract his order. Sun Cheng, Zhou Han, Jiang Chen. You talk too much. This king has made up my mind. I will bring the 4th Pure Young Army to the Night Empire to provide support tomorrow. Our Divine Sword Empire is the leader of the 5 great empires. Now that our friends are in trouble, how can we not be an example? How many of our 5 human empires will be left after this calamity if we don't support each other? Lu Zhen looked at the ministers below resolutely. He had no intention of changing his mind. As the eldest brother of the 5 empires, he had to do this seeing that other empires were in trouble. Even if he had to withstand immense pressure. The old minister still wanted to say something. However, a majestic and vast sword intent erupted from Lu Zhen's body and covered the entire hall in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the other ministers were suppressed to the point of speechlessness apart from Zhou Zhou, who also released a majestic sword intent to resist Lu Zhen's sword intent. As for Yu Ling, she was not affected by Lu Zhen's sword intent deliberately. As such, Zhou Zhou became the most eye-catching person in the entire hall. All the ministers looked at Zhou Zhou in disbelief. They also felt the majestic sword intent on his body. It was hard for them to imagine how this young man could grasp such a shocking realm of the sword Dao at such a young age. Lu Zhen naturally noticed the difference in Zhou Zhou. He looked at Zhou Zhou with shining eyes. Then, he stood up and laughed out loud before looking at him with admiration. How rare, judging from your age and the time you've spent, it's unbelievable that you can comprehend such a shocking sword intent in such a short period of time. Since ancient times, countless peerless sword cultivator geniuses have appeared in the human chi practitioner lineage. And among them, you are top of the list. Lu Zhen said with certainty. As soon as these words were spoken, all the ministers, including Yu Ling, who was beside Zhou Zhou, gasped slightly and looked at him in shock. Especially Yu Ling. She looked at Zhou Zhou with sparkling eyes. Even though she knew that Zhou Zhou's attainments in the sword Dao were very high from his performance in Nine Net City, she did not expect that it could actually be so high. One had to know that His Majesty was the descendant of Sword Emperor Fuyo. His words were extremely valuable. Moreover, since the other party could say that Zhou Zhou's sword Dao aptitude was ranked first since ancient times, it was very likely that the other party had included Sword Emperor Fuyo. Under such circumstances, he could still be ranked first. It was obvious that Lu Zhen approved of Zhou Zhou. Ahem. Zhou Zhou blushed slightly. His own people knew his situation. His sword Dao cultivation and aptitude were only replicated from Qi Shantian. How could it be as exaggerated as what His Majesty said? Before today, he had not even focused on practicing sword techniques for a few days. He felt a little embarrassed to be praised like this. At the same time, Lu Zhen looked at the other ministers and suddenly snorted. A bunch of disappointing people. You're sword cultivators, but none of you are as strong as a rising star who has only mastered supernatural power for less than a month. The ministers smiled bitterly. I've already decided to support the Night Empire. There's no need for you to say anything. General Situ, I'll leave the reorganization of the troops to you. Lu Zhen said. The ministers looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly, but no one tried to persuade him anymore. Your Majesty, Yu Ling has something to say. At this moment, Yu Ling stood up and said. Oh. Just tell me what you want to say. As Lu Zhen spoke, he was filled with the gentleness of an elder to a junior to Yu Ling. He did not have the airs of a ruler of the empire at all. Actually, even though our Night Empire has been attacked by the fog monster forces during this period of time, with the help of the King of the Blazing Sun, the general situation on the battlefield has eased a lot. It's just that we're still a little powerless on a god spirit level battlefield. Yu Ling said. Really? When Lu Zhen heard that, he raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Zhou Zhou. The other ministers also looked at Zhou Zhou in surprise. They did not know how Zhou Zhou, a lord of a race that had just risen, could help the Night Empire in a war of this level. Chapter 736 Origin of the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, for real. Yu Ling looked at Lu Zhen seriously. Interesting. It seems like this nephew didn't obtain the title of strongest lord of all races purely because of luck. Lu Zhen looked at Zhou Zhou in wonder. If that's the case, it'll bring some god spirit level combat power to the Night Empire tomorrow. He changed his mind and said. The ministers heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, Lu Zhen suddenly stood up. The eunuch behind him immediately understood and shouted, "Leave the court." This court meeting would end. Then, Lu Zhen waved his hand and Zhou Zhou and Yu Ling disappeared before they could react. Imperial Palace. In the Imperial Garden. When Zhou Zhou and Yu Ling landed on the ground again, they realized that they had arrived in the blink of an eye. Lu Zhen was sitting on an exquisite table made of god-tier wood in front of them, drinking tea leisurely. "My good niece, tell me the details. I'm very interested in how this nephew helped the Night Empire relieve the pressure." Lu Zhen looked at Zhou Zhou with interest. When Yu Ling heard this, she subconsciously looked at Zhou Zhou and saw him nod. When Yu Ling saw this, she told him the truth about Zhou Zhou sending hundreds of millions of troops to clean up the fog monster army near the Night Empire's territory. When he heard that Zhou Zhou might have more than 1 billion troops, even Lu Zhen could not help but gape at Zhou Zhou in shock. He could manage to garner 1 billion in troops if he added up all the forces in the Divine Sword Empire. Yet this nephew, who had just arrived in the High Continent, actually had more than 1 billion soldiers. Even if most of the 1 billion soldiers were new recruits, that was still impressive. Lu Zhen's first thought was disbelief. However, looking at the serious Yu Ling and the calm Zhou Zhou, Lu Zhen felt that this matter was very likely true. "Tomorrow, I will lead some god spirits to the Night Empire. When the time comes, let me see how strong you are." Lu Zhen really wanted to see the strength of this strongest rising star of the human race. Zhou Zhou nodded without hesitation. "Your Majesty, the Divine Sword Empire is surrounded by the Scarlet Fog Army. I've seen a lot along the way. Therefore, I'd like to be bold and contribute to the Divine Sword Empire. Even though it might not be of much use, I still hope to give it a try. I hope your Majesty can agree." Zhou Zhou said. "You're too kind, nephew. Honestly, the situation of our Divine Sword Empire is actually not very good. We need help now. If nephew wants to help, we can't ask for more. How can I dictate what you do? I'll arrange a general for you later. Just inform him when you want to go there. He'll bring you there." Lu Zhen said. "Thank you, your Majesty." Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. "Oh yes, since you're already here and you said that the remaining spatial teleportation arrays can be opened tonight, the faction quests given to you by the Night Empire should be almost completed, right?" When Lu Zhen reached the end, he looked at Yu Ling. Yu Ling was stunned for a moment before hurriedly nodding. "Of course." As soon as she finished speaking, lines of text appeared in front of Zhou Zhou. System announcement. Faction quests, Distant Divine Sword Empire has been completed. Faction mission reward, 78, 9 million faction points. Diplomatic relations between the Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire have been upgraded to the level of respect. 1 Death Sword in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, not used. 10,000 Empire-level combat class. The loyalty of the Army Extermination Knight. 1,000 legendary tier mist cores have been distributed. When Zhou Zhou saw this line of words, he could not help but smile. He opened the Night Empire faction points ranking and Elven Empire faction points ranking. Both of them were still firmly occupying the first place with the advantage of absolute faction points. Then, he took a deep breath and opened the Lord faction points ranking with anticipation. Myriad Races Lord faction points ranking, first place, Original Spirit Race, True Lord, 332,600,000 faction points. Second place, Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord, 185,006,000 faction points. Third place, Human, Lord of the Blazing Sun, 150 million faction points. Fourth place, Chaos God's Race, Great One Lord, 120 million faction points. Fifth place, Myriad Spirit Clan, Spiritual Venerable Lord, 81,004,500 faction points. Zhou Zhou looked at the rankings and nodded in satisfaction. He had finally entered the top 3. However, when he saw the faction points of the other lords, he could not help but raise his eyebrows slightly. These guys' faction points are increasing very quickly, especially the True Lord. His faction points have exceeded 300 million. Zhou Zhou clicked his tongue. These top-notch lords were indeed difficult to deal with. He casually opened the World Channel and found that a few lords of Cerulean Planet had already discovered the change in his ranking and were publicizing it in the World Channel. With his current identity, status, and reputation, it wouldn't be long before all the lords on Cerulean Planet knew that he had once again become one of the top 3 lords in the event. Those rumors that said he couldn't make it would naturally not be very convincing. It only took Zhou Zhou 5 to 6 breaths to check this information. After he came back to his senses, he thanked Lu Zhen and Yu Ling. "This is what you deserve." Yu Ling looked at Zhou Zhou with a strange glint in her eyes. No matter how one looked at it, the current Zhou Zhou could be considered a benefactor of the Night Empire. Therefore, he had already silently occupied a very high position in Yu Ling's heart. "Stop flirting in front of me, you two." At this moment, the two of them heard Lu Zhen laugh. Yu Ling was stunned. Then, her fair face suddenly turned red. "Your Majesty, what are you saying?" Yu Ling wished she could stuff her head into the crack in the ground. However, there was a feeling in her heart that made her blush shyly. "Your Majesty, I already have a wife." Zhou Zhou smiled bitterly. "It's normal for a man to have multiple wives. Especially a lord like you. Even though you're only a lord of a kingdom now, you might become an emperor of the empire in the future and even have higher power. At that time, if you only have one woman in your life, will you be able to do it?" Lu Zhen shook his head. Even though he was a person who focused on the Tao, there were more than 1,000 concubines in the imperial palace, so he did not agree with Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou did not say anything. "Alright, let's not talk about this anymore." Lu Zhen didn't think of changing Zhou Zhou's mindset in a short period of time. He stood up and walked in a certain direction while talking about something else. "Come on. I'll bring you to the Death Sword Demonic Abyss and let you choose a good sword. With your attainments in the Sword Dao and your aptitude in the Sword Dao, tisk tsk. I wonder which powerful sword cultivator's death sword will choose you. But don't worry, it will definitely not be bad. Niece, come over too. Even though you've already been here before, just treat it as an old haunt." Zhou Zhou and Yu Ling immediately followed. Death Sword Demonic Abyss? What kind of place is that? Zhou Zhou asked curiously. "Niece, tell him." Lu Zhen said casually. He couldn't be bothered to explain such a trivial matter himself. "Yes, Your Majesty." Yu Ling nodded and looked at Zhou Zhou. When she saw Zhou Zhou's clear and curious gaze, she could not help but look to the side, not daring to meet his eyes. She said slowly, "The Death Sword Demonic Abyss is a special abyss that can accommodate and nurture sword intent. It's both the divine land of the Divine Sword Empire and the divine land of our human race. Its status is comparable to the heroic spirit hall of our human race. It's said that every sword cultivator will infuse their lifelong comprehension of the Sword Dao and their ultimate techniques into their intrinsic divine swords. Then, before they die, they will throw their intrinsic divine swords into the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. After the sword master dies, these intrinsic divine swords will also lose their consciousness and become death swords in a sense. It's not until an inheritor suitable for the records in the divine swords appears that these death swords will be awakened again and carry out the master selection test. The test of choosing a master is very dangerous. You have to compete with the sword devil produced by the divine sword. Only by defeating the sword devil and winning can you inherit Senior's natal divine sword. That's how the Death Sword Demonic Abyss got its name. Tens of thousands of years have passed. To this day, there are probably more than 1,000,000 death swords in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. Among these death swords, their previous owners were at least legendary tier sword cultivators. The highest was even a high-tier deity-level divine artifact left behind by a high-tier deity-level sword cultivator. While there aren't many, however, it also made this place a holy land of the sword Tao that countless sword cultivators and even god spirits yearn for. Yu Ling said. Zhou Zhou nodded. A moment later. After experiencing 3 twists and turns and a transfer of 2 spatial teleportation arrays, they arrived at the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. Chapter 737 Entering the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. Talent Intuition Triggered. Zhou Zhou looked at the Death Sword Demonic Abyss in front of him in surprise. A huge deep canyon that stretched for tens of thousands of kilometers stretched across the ground. Wisps of purple demonic energy seeped out, dyeing the entire sky like the demon realm. The space around the canyon rippled continuously, as if it wanted to isolate the Death Sword Demonic Abyss from the outside world. Lu Zhen saw Zhou Zhou's expression. He smiled. The Death Sword Demonic Abyss has buried too many death swords and the will of too many sword cultivators. Over the years, the resistance of the sword cultivators in these death swords has long become demonic and has become the obsession of metamorphosis. They have also taken control of the death sword that contains them. If you want to retrieve the sword, you have to enter the Death Sword Demonic Abyss and personally come into contact with the endless death sword resistance. As long as you defeat the resistance of the death sword that is interested in you, that death sword will become a living sword again and belong to you. The sword master inheritance inside will also belong to you. Our divine sword empire and even the entire human race have so many sword cultivators. Moreover, the inheritance of sword cultivators has never stopped. Countless sword Tao geniuses can also rise in every era. This Death Sword Demonic Abyss can be said to have taken most of the credit. This is the meaning of the divine land. Lu Zhen said in a low voice. Zhou Zhou was even more surprised. He did not expect the Death Sword Demonic Abyss to be so meaningful to the divine sword empire and even the human race. Still, Zhou Zhou fell into deep thought. If the benefits of the Death Sword Demonic Abyss were only to obtain a good sword and a superb sword Tao inheritance, then was it useful to him? In terms of swords, he had the true god-tier divine artifacts, sword of new dimension creation. In terms of sword Tao inheritance, he had grasped Qi Xuanqian's sword Tao realm. It was even enough to make Lu Zhen praise him. Zhou Zhou boldly asked. Are there true god-tier divine artifacts in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss? As soon as these words were spoken, Lu Zhen and Yu Ling were stunned. How can there be a true god-tier divine artifact? Our human race only has one true god-tier divine artifact. Currently, it's in the hands of the Emperor. The other human god spirits, even my ancestor, the Sword Emperor Fuyo, only have a top-notch high-tier deity-level divine artifact, the pure Yang Dao sword. Lu Zhen shook his head. Zhou Zhou blinked. There was only one true god-tier divine artifacts in the entire human race. He smacked his lips and did not mention that he had a second true god-tier divine artifacts. At this moment, Lu Zhen looked at Zhou Zhou. He seemed to have thought of something and could not help but laugh. Go on. Even though your attainments in the Sword Tao are astonishing, there are still a few Sword Tao inheritances stronger than yours in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. Don't underestimate the sword cultivators of our human race since ancient times. Zhou Zhou was stunned. Then, he pursed his lips and did not say anything. This big shot seemed to have misunderstood me. I'm not that arrogant. However, he did not explain anything. He could not say that he was thinking about having a second true god-tier divine artifacts. Without another word, he flew up and quickly flew above the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. He looked at the scene below, which was filled with purple energy, like the Demon Realm district. Zhou Zhou took a deep breath and put on a divine artifact. Then, he summoned his 14 final guard members and asked them to surround him to protect him. Then, he took out the pillar of the Empire puppet that had 9 summonings left and held it in his hand, making it easier to summon it at any time. Finally, he took out a series of life-saving methods, such as the Death Substitution Puppet, Random Teleportation Talisman, Ethereal Scroll, and other items. He used them all on himself. It would be best if after all this. Only then did he feel a little safe and fly straight down. Lu Zhen and Yu Ling, who had witnessed all this, were speechless. Lu Zhen, this kid, is quite steady. I originally wanted to tell him that I would always be watching him from above and not let him be in danger. From the looks of it, there's no need. Yu Ling also clicked her tongue and nodded. Being steady was a good trait after all. Under the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, Zhou was wrapped in wisps of fine sword energy. He fell into the depths of the Death Sword Demonic Abyss like a meteor. His arrival was like a drop of water falling into a pot of hot oil. Rumble. Buzz buzz buzz. The Death Sword Demonic Abyss was trembling. Countless low, irritable, suppressed, or sharp sword hums sounded. It was as if a large number of undead had been awakened under the ground. My good lord, all the death swords in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss were activated. Lu Zhen clicked his tongue in wonder with a surprised smile on his face. Yu Ling's eyes widened. Back then, when she entered the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, she had only triggered more than 10,000 death swords to respond to her. But that was it. It also made Lu Zhen sincerely praise her for being a good seedling to cultivate the sword Dao. If she embarked on the path of a sword immortal, her future would definitely be limitless. After so many years, she had indeed felt her talent in the sword Dao. Not to mention anything else, she was now at the epic tier. However, she could fight even legendary tier fog monsters. This was the powerful strength she had obtained after becoming a sword cultivator. Therefore, she had long realized the value of the 10,000-odd death swords. The combined cry of more than 10,000 divine swords allowed her to have her current achievements. More than 1,000,000 divine swords in the entire Death Sword Demonic Abyss sounded for Zhou. What kind of sword Dao aptitude was this? Yu Ling did not dare to imagine it. In the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, Zhou looked at least hundreds of illusory figures made of purple demonic energy charging at him with all kinds of divine swords in their hands. In the end, they were shattered by the sword chi wrapped around him before they could get close. However, there were still waves of death sword resistance. They attacked Zhou in an endless stream, and batch after batch of them died. Zhou watched this scene calmly. The sword Dao cultivation of this group of death sword resistance had not even surpassed Qi Xiantian, so they were naturally not valued by him. He could only choose to bring a sword out when he came to the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. He could not attack casually. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly accelerated. After flying for about 300,000 meters, Zhou arrived at the bottom of the canyon. He looked at the illusion here. This place seemed to be a dead place and was very quiet. What greeted his eyes was grayish-white lifeless soil and the lifeless swords inserted in the soil. Zhou casually picked up a rusty sword. The hilt of this sword was still wrapped in black dilapidated tassel. It looked very old, like a broken sword that had been abandoned here. Zhou looked at it and was stunned to discover that it was a legendary tier sword. He looked at the other broken swords. In the end, he realized that every lousy sword in his sight was a legendary tier elementary grade sword at the very least. The highest was a legendary tier advanced grade sword. Zhou had yet to see any higher level swords. This Death Sword Demonic Abyss is at least tens of millions of square kilometers in size. Where should I go? Zhou pondered. Just as he was thinking, a faint feeling suddenly appeared in his mind, guiding him towards the southwest, as if there was a treasure he needed the most in that direction. Is my Lord Talent intuition working? Zhou was stunned. Then, he was overjoyed. He had almost forgotten that he had this Lord Talent. Chapter 738 Race Divine Artifact, Sword of Xian Yuan, Mountain River Plants and Tree Sword. Then, Zhou Zhou flew quickly in the direction indicated by his talent intuition without hesitation. Along the way, Zhou Zhou also quickly sensed the death sword he encountered along the way. Then, he discovered these swords. The lowest was at the legendary tier elementary grade. He even saw a mid-tier deity-level elementary grade divine sword. However, he ignored all of this. He chose to believe in his talent intuition, that it would bring him the best choices and results. On the death sword demonic abyss. Lu Zhen and Yu Ling looked into the depths of the canyon covered in purple demonic energy. They both frowned. Even though both of them were extraordinary tier and one of them was a high-tier deity-level god spirit, he could not see the situation more than 300,000 meters below. Your Majesty, what kind of sword do you think Zhou Zhou can obtain? Yu Ling could not help but ask. With this King of the Blazing Sun's unprecedented sword Dao aptitude, he can probably subdue more than 99% of the sword artifacts under the death sword demonic abyss at will. However, I can tell that he has extremely high standards. Ordinary sword artifacts shouldn't catch his eye. He will probably choose at least one divine artifact level sword. However, the death sword demonic abyss is too vast. There's also demonic energy, sword energy, obsessions, and other things that obstruct the spread of divine sense. It also greatly reduces the efficiency of finding a good sword. There's also demonic energy, sword energy, obsessions, and other things that obstruct the spread of divine sense. It also greatly reduces the efficiency of finding a good sword. Whether he can obtain a good sword that satisfies him will depend on this King of the Blazing Sun's choice. Lu Zhen pondered. Yu Ling frowned slightly and nodded. Under the death sword demonic abyss, Zhou Zhou looked at the sword in front of him. One side of the sword artifact was engraved with the scene of mountains, rivers, plants, and trees. A faint vitality spread from its surface. There was nothing on the other side. This. Could it be? Zhou Zhou's eyes were filled with surprise and even widened in excitement. He looked at the sword. Soon, a text notification appeared. Race Divine Artifact Name, Incomplete Sword of Xian Yuan, Equipment Grade, Unique in the Race, as a Chinese, Race Divine Artifact Ability 1, Sun Moon Star Sword, Unknown, you need to collect and fuse the sun, moon, star faces of the Sword of Xian Yuan to activate this Race Divine Artifact Ability. Race Divine Artifact Ability 2, Mountain River Plants and Tree Sword, all plants planted by the humans of the Cerulean planet will be loved by the mountains and rivers. Their growth time will decrease by 20%, the maximum reduction time is not more than 99.9%. The sword-holding lord and its Cerulean planet subjects would be even more favored by the mountain river plants and tree sword. The growth time of plants and trees would decrease by 30%, the maximum reduction time would not exceed 99.9%, moreover, when plants matured, there was a 20% chance that the medicinal effect would increase by 50%, there was a 1% chance that the quality of plants and trees would increase by 1, and there was a 0.1% chance that the quality of plants and trees would increase by 2. Race Divine Artifact Ability 3, Agriculture Husbandry Sword, Unknown, to activate this race's Divine Artifact Ability, you need to collect and fuse with the Sword of Xian Yuan's Agriculture Husbandry Sword face. Race Divine Artifact Ability 4, Heaven and Earth Unification Sword, Unknown, to activate this race's Divine Artifact Ability, you need to collect and fuse the hilt of the Sword of Xian Yuan's Heaven and Earth Unification. Introduction to the Race Divine Artifact, Sword of Xian Yuan, also known as the Xian Yuan Xia Yu Sword. One side of the sword is engraved with the sun, moon, and stars, while the other side is carved with mountains, rivers, plants, and trees. The hilt is filled with the art of agriculture husbandry sword, and the other side contains the strategy of unifying the world. It contains endless power. It does not only kill demons, it is also one of the important reliances of the Cerulean Planet Lord in fighting for the position of Lord of all races on the High Continent. It's indeed the incomplete sword of Xian Yuan. Zhou Zhou said excitedly. He had never expected this. His third incomplete sword of Xian Yuan was actually obtained in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. Compared to it, low-tier deity-level divine artifacts, high-tier deity-level divine artifacts, and even true god-tier divine artifacts were no longer important. How could a divine artifact be more precious than a race divine artifact? Not to mention this racial divine artifact of the human race on the Cerulean planet. Moreover, the effect of this sword of Xian Yuan, the mountain river plants and tree sword, was ridiculously strong. Just a 20% reduction in growth time was a top-grade support effect. As for the 20% chance, it was not bad to increase the medicinal effect by 50% when plants matured. As for the last 1% probability, grass and plant quality plus 0. 1% probability, grass and plant quality plus 2. The effect was even more heaven-defying. An ordinary epic tier medicinal herb, with the help of the mountain river plants and tree sword, its quality might directly increase by 2 levels and become a low-tier god-tier medicinal herb. Even though their chances of success sounded very low, one had to know that they were all large patches of seeds. Therefore, as long as there were enough of them, no matter how small the probability was, growing them was possible. It was just a matter of time. Moreover, there would not be a loss as long as the medicinal herbs were planted. He did not have to worry about the losses from planting medicinal herbs in large quantities. And the most important thing was, Linger's divine herb garden can almost be said to have gained wings with the enhancement of the mountain river plants and tree sword. Zhou Zhou thought excitedly. With the effect of this mountain river plants and tree sword, when Linger used the divine herb garden to grow medicinal herbs in the future, as long as they were medicinal herbs below the yellow gold tier, they could be reduced by 99.9%. Even legendary tier medicinal herbs could reduce growth time by 49.9%. Other than the fact that it could not work on god tier medicinal herbs, it was almost not much different from the mythical tier unique lord talent. Currently, other than a portion of the medicinal herbs bought from the outside world, most of the remaining medicinal herbs were provided by Linger. It was naturally extremely beneficial to him that Linger's lord talent had been indirectly enhanced. He came back to his senses after a long time. Then, he suddenly remembered something. He picked up the sword of Xian Yuan, Sun Moon Plant Sword. After sensing it, he did not feel any obsession from it. Which meant, this sword of Xian Yuan, the Sun Moon Plant Sword, did not have a previous owner. Zhou Zhou could not help but think. The first 2 incomplete pieces of the sword of Xian Yuan were obtained from the reward of the Supreme Will. The third one was incomplete, but it was obtained from this Death Sword Demonic Abyss. And there's no sword master. In other words, it's very likely to have suddenly appeared here. This is very likely the work of the Supreme Will. And if it's really what the Supreme Will did, that also means that the last part of my sword of Xian Yuan, the Heaven and Earth Unification Sword, is very likely to have already appeared in a certain place in the High Continent. Or it might be in an alternate world outside a high continent. Thinking of this, Zhou Zhou could not help but fall into deep thought. It seemed that he had to pay attention to inquiring about this when he conquered the foreign land in the future. Then, he fused the sword of Xian Yuan, the mountain river plants and tree sword, with his own sword of Xian Yuan, becoming an incomplete sword of Xian Yuan that was only missing a portion of the hilt. Zhou Zhou looked at the abilities of the 3 race divine artifacts on it and could not help but click his tongue. This sword of Xian Yuan could completely increase the future potential of the entire Cerulean planet by several levels alone. The sword of Xian Yuan could definitely be considered a top-notch divine artifact of the race even among the many divine artifacts of the race. Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it. He put away the sword of Xian Yuan and turned into a golden stream of light, flying towards the top of the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. He had already obtained the sword, so it was time to leave. Chapter 739 Holy Sword Empire's Faction Quests. On the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. Lu Zhen and Yu Ling waited quietly for Zhou Zhou to come out. The Death Sword Demonic Abyss could allow those who entered to stay inside for at most 3 days and 3 nights. After 3 days and 3 nights, if the person who entered had yet to decide which Death Sword to choose, then the million Death Swords in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss would feel that the other party was looking down on them. When the time comes, all the Death Swords would join forces and expel the person who entered from the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, preventing them from coming in again. From then on, they would forever lose the chance to obtain the Death Sword's inheritance in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. On the way here, Lu Zhen had already told Zhou Zhou about this. Therefore, the two of them were preparing to wait here for 3 days and 3 nights. They would also secretly protect Zhou Zhou to prevent him from encountering any undefeatable danger. Niece. Nephew will probably stay for 3 days and 3 nights. How about you and I play Lord Chess? Lu Zhen waved his right hand, and a table appeared out of thin air on the ground. There were 2 chairs and a chessboard and chess piece made of white jade crystal on the table. Lord Chess was a game of chess that had been circulating in the high continent for a long time. From the commoners to the nobles, no matter which class it was, they were willing to play a few rounds of Lord Chess in their spare time. Not only could they pass the time, but they could also pass the addiction of roaming the high continent and fighting for the position of the Supreme Lord. Yu Ling nodded distractedly when she heard this. The corners of Chu Zhou's mouth curled up seeing that. He could clearly tell that this little girl already had feelings for the King of the Blazing Sun. However, he naturally had no intention of objecting. Instead, he agreed greatly and even wanted to personally matchmake them. As a Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm, high-tier deity level, who had lived for an unknown period of time, the thing he loved to see the most in his life, other than the scene of the human race growing stronger day by day, was that a lover was finally married. A moment later, just as the two of them were about to play chess, buzz. Countless low sword hums sounded from the deepest part of the Death Sword Demonic Abyss. Lu Zhen and Yu Ling were stunned. Then, the two of them stood up almost at the same time. This is a farewell sword chant. My nephew is coming out. Lu Zhen was stunned. Yu Ling was also very surprised. How could it be so fast? They saw a golden figure shoot out from the depths of the canyon and fly in front of them, revealing Zhou Zhou before the two of them could react. Nephew, why are you so fast? Lu Zhen could not help but ask. Zhou Zhou was originally quite happy, but after hearing this, the corners of his mouth twitched a few times. I'm not fast. Zhou Zhou added. I naturally emerged after finding a sword that suits me. Zhou Zhou knew that he could stay for 3 days and 3 nights. However, he really felt that there was no need to waste time. He had already obtained a supreme treasure like a race divine artifact. What should he still be doing down there? A sightseeing tour? Lu Zhen and Yu Ling nodded after a few seconds. What level of sword did you obtain? Lu Zhen asked curiously. When Zhou Zhou heard this, he didn't waste any time and directly shared the information about the divine artifact of the sword of Xian Yuan, mountain river plants and tree sword with the two of them. As for his main body that had already fused into the sword of Xian Yuan, he definitely could not take it out. When the two of them saw the information of this race divine artifact, they were first stunned, then stunned. Race divine artifact, Lu Zhen stammered. Race divine artifact. He reacted and was immediately shocked. How can there be a race divine artifact? Impossible. When did such a divine artifact appear in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss? Lu Zhen was stunned. Yu Ling was even more confused. It's our cerulean planet's human race's divine artifact. I reckon that after the humans of the cerulean planet came to the supreme continent, the supreme will casually throw the race divine artifacts of the humans of the cerulean planet here. Our cerulean planet's human race's divine artifacts are like this, and the divine artifacts of the lords of the other races are probably no exception. They should have also spread to a certain corner of the entire high continent and even the endless heavens. Zhou Zhou said. Lu Zhen was stunned. Then, he hurriedly looked at the information on the divine artifact of the mountain river plants and tree sword. As expected, he saw that it was a divine artifact exclusive to the humans of the cerulean planet. So it can only be used by the humans on the cerulean planet. I thought it would be useful to the entire human race. Lu Zhen smacked his lips twice, feeling that it was a pity. At the same time, he had also guessed why the other party had been able to find a race divine artifact so quickly. It's probably because the humans of the cerulean planet could sense the divine artifacts of their race, right? Lu Zhen thought. Zhou Zhou smiled. If this sword of Xian Yuan, the mountain river plants and tree sword, could be useful to the entire human race, then even if their human race could not compare to top-notch bloodline races like the original spirit race in terms of talent, they were comparable to some races that could reach the elven and demon levels. I was wondering why nephew emerged so quickly. That's true. In front of a race divine artifact, let alone a divine artifact, even if it's a true god-tier divine artifact, you have to consider it. Lu Zhen paused at the end. The three of them looked at each other and could not help but smile. Oh yes. Now that the diplomacy between your blazing sun kingdom and my divine sword empire has reached the level of respect, why don't you join our holy sword empire's empire faction? Then, I will give you the strongest faction quest of the divine sword empire. It's naturally best if it's completed. If you can't complete it, I won't set any punishment for you for failing the faction mission. How about that? Lu Zhen asked. Thank you, Your Majesty. I can't ask for more. Without any hesitation, Zhou Zhou immediately agreed. If it was a kingdom-level lord faction that issued him a top-notch faction quest, he might reject their faction quest in order to avoid running out of time. However, the Empire faction quests were different. The rewards for the Empire faction quests were extremely generous, even 10 times or more than the rewards for the kingdom-level faction quests. Which meant, completing an Empire-level faction quest was equivalent to completing 10 kingdom-level faction quests. He was naturally willing to accept such a thing that saved time and gave him an extremely high reward. Then, he did not waste any time and directly opened the activity icon of the King of 10,000 Kings. Then, he opened the Join the Faction option and found the Human Race, Divine Sword Empire, Friendly option. Then, he chose to join the faction. Almost in the next second, he realized that he had successfully joined the Empire's camp of the Holy Sword Empire. There was no doubt, this was definitely the work of His Majesty Lu Zhen. Lu Zhen looked at Zhou Zhou with a much friendlier gaze. Then, he said, if that's the case, then I'll hand this top-notch faction quest to you. Whether you can complete it or not depends on you. Lu Zhen patted Zhou Zhou's shoulder. The next second, a text notification appeared. Divine Sword Empire Faction, Lord of the Empire, Lu Zhen issued you a faction quest. Faction quest name, Save the Divine Sword Empire, Quest's quality, Legendary tier advanced grade, unique, quest content, remove the current crisis of the Divine Sword Empire being surrounded by the Fog Monster army from all sides and help the Divine Sword Empire recover to the peace before the calamity of the myriad races. Mission reward, 400 million faction points, the loyalty of 10,000 Chi practitioners, epic tier, 100 legendary tier mist cores, and a random special building blueprint for the cultivation path of Chi practitioners. Chapter 740 Flying Sword Capital, the Divine Craftsman City. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up. Even though the rewards of this faction quest were not as rich as before, his faction points had reached a total of 400 million faction points. Zhou Zhou actually did not lack any fancy rewards now. What he lacked were faction points that could help him increase his ranking. While this faction quest seemed a little difficult to complete, as long as the number of soldiers increased by a few times every day, in less than 10 days, he was confident that he had enough troops to sweep through all the fog monsters in the Divine Sword Empire. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou chose to accept this faction quest without hesitation. You brat! You are so bold! As expected of you, who can obtain the strongest lord of all races. He's actually so bold when accepting such a difficult faction quest. Lu Zhen watched as Zhou Zhou accepted the faction quests without hesitation. He looked at him with even more admiration. Let's go. I'll bring you guys out for a meal. At the same time, I'll let my royal descendants take a good look at what their role models are like. At the very least, they have to learn from your boldness. Lu Zhen laughed. Zhou Zhou and Yu Ling did not refuse. Anyway, it was just a meal. Then, Lu Zhen brought Zhou Zhou, Yu Ling, to eat a royal banquet with 70 to 80 direct descendants of the Divine Sword Empire. At this banquet, Zhou Zhou or Yu Ling ate quite happily. Furthermore, the descendants of the royal family did not look down on others like in the novels. Instead, they were all polite and had extremely good attitudes. They even took the initiative to befriend them, making Zhou Zhou praise the other party's royal family's education. As a chaos human with extremely sharp senses, he could sense that these imperial family descendants were not pretending in front of him. Instead, they were sincere and friendly from the bottom of their hearts. This was very rare. In the end, this banquet could be considered to be a joyous occasion for the host and guests. After the banquet ended, Zhou Zhou brought up the matter of finding trouble with the Scarlet faction that had besieged the Divine Sword Empire. Lu Zhen called a man over. His name is Ruoji, and he's the strategist of the first pure young army under me. He's also a legendary tier elementary grade warlock. He's currently presiding over the Divine Sword Empire's intelligence collection of the surrounding fog monster army. If you have any questions in this regard, just ask him directly. Even if it's a relatively confidential intelligence question, he can answer it. Lu Zhen said. Greetings, Lord Ruoji. Zhou Zhou nodded at him. He looked at him. Ruoji was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 30s or 40s, but he did not know how old he was. He was wearing a reddish-brown strategist's outfit. He was thin and had a gentle face. His eyes seemed to be able to see through all the schemes and strange things. He could grasp everything and gave off a very reliable feeling. King of the Blazing Sun, you're too kind. Ruoji smiled politely. This King of the Blazing Sun's reputation was like a newborn sun. It had already shocked the entire human race. Who in the entire human race or even countless foreign races didn't know of him? In fact, many higher-ups of the human race thought highly of him. They even called him one of the future hopes of the human race. Even though he, Ruoji, was trusted by His Majesty, he did not dare to neglect such a human prodigy. I heard from His Majesty that you want to cause trouble for the Scarlet Fog army that besieged our Divine Sword Empire. What's the target? Ruoji asked kindly. Naturally, it's a place with many scarlet monsters attacking our city. The more the merrier. Zhou Zhou emphasized again. As soon as these words were spoken, be it Lu Zhen, Yu Ling, or Ruoji, they all looked at him in surprise. Could it be that this kid was deliberately showing off in front of His Majesty? Ruoji guessed. Okay. He didn't think much of it and nodded with a smile. After that, the two of them did not say anything else. After bidding farewell to Lu Zhen, they turned around and walked towards the exit of the Imperial Palace. As you've requested, the most heavily besieged place in the Kingdom of Sword is undoubtedly the Divine Craftsman City. The Divine Craftsman City is a city of craftsmen in the Holy Sword Empire that is specially used to forge weapons and armor. Nearly 50% of the craftsmen of our Divine Sword Empire are gathered inside. These blacksmiths are extremely good at forging armor and ordinary standard weapons, especially in forging flying swords. They even have the reputation of flying sword capital in our Divine Sword Empire. The Divine Craftsman City is located at the northwest border of the Holy Sword Empire. To allow the Divine Craftsman City to continuously produce weapons, armor, and even flying swords, His Majesty invests a lot of resources in it every year. Especially rare ores and resources. More than 70% of the rare ores and resources that our Divine Sword Empire harvests every year will be invested in the Divine Craftsman City. Because of this, the Divine Craftsman City has gathered a large portion of our precious resources and a large number of craftsmen. Because of these 2 points, the Fog Monster Army has targeted the Divine Craftsman City. If they can capture the Divine Craftsman City, obtain the national ores resources in the city, and transform all the craftsmen into fog monsters or kill them, the strength of these fog monsters will immediately be clearly enhanced, and our Divine Sword Empire will be clearly severely injured. Ruoji said solemnly. Even though we want to send more troops to the Divine Craftsman City, the various places in the Divine Sword Empire are already in a hurry. All the troops have long been sent out. There's no way to squeeze out additional troops to support the Divine Craftsman City. If King of the Blazing Sun can alleviate the pressure of war in the Divine Craftsman City, everyone in the Divine Sword Empire will be indebted to you. As soon as he finished speaking, a text notification appeared. Divine Sword Empire Faction, Lord of the Empire, Lu Zhen issued you a faction quest. Faction quest's name, Rescue, quest's grade, Epic Tier Advanced Grade, quest content, as a light industrial city with a large number of craftsmen and a vast amount of rare mineral resources, Divine Craftsman City is very important in the eyes of the Divine Sword Empire, but it is also very important in the eyes of the fog monsters. Please go to the Divine Craftsman City and use all your means to ease the pressure of war in the Divine Craftsman City. Mission reward, 10 million faction points, 1,000 extraordinary tier blacksmith, carpenter, tailor's allegiance, 1,000 epic tier mist cores. When Zhou saw this, he did not hesitate and took it. In any case, it was just one insight defection. It would be a waste not to do it. Don't worry, my lord. I'm not confident in saving the entire Divine Craftsman City since my soldiers are not by my side now. However, if it's just to ease the pressure of war in the Divine Craftsman City, I can do it alone. Zhou smiled. Oh. Ruoji looked at him in surprise, then nodded. Come with me. Okay. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.